From Times Square, the heart of the theater district in New York City, crossroads of the world, welcome to the premiere of Stage on Screen. In a few moments, television history will be made with the first live broadcast of a Broadway show from the newly incandescent 42nd Street. Tonight, Stage on Screen presents the Roundabout Theater Company's production of Moss Hart and George S. Kaufman's classic comedy, The Man Who Came to Dinner, starring Nathan Lane and Jean Smart. From the American Airlines Theater, your hosts for the evening, Natasha Richardson and Liam Neeson.
Welcome to Stage on Screen, where television history, I believe, has just been made with a staggering 12 cliches in a single announcement.
I'd like to add one more, a heartfelt one, by saying how thrilled we are to be here this evening in the Roundabout Theatre Company's new home. I feel particularly grateful to the Roundabout, not just because of their commitment to presenting classic theatre, such as tonight's sparkling, light-hearted romp, The Man Who Came to Dinner, but more personally because Liam and I made our New York stage debuts and met for the first time during their 1993 production of Eugene O'Neill's Anna Christie.
Another sparkling, light-hearted romp.
O'Neill's dark story about immigrants couldn't be more different from tonight's offering, which takes place in the posh home of a well-to-do Midwestern family and overflows with witty banter, shameless name-dropping, and the childish behavior of sophisticated adults.
The Man Who Came to Dinner opened in New York at the Music Box Theatre on October 16th, 1939, to unanimous acclaim. Brooks Atkinson, the drama critic for the New York Times, wrote, "It is American in its comic tone, Broadway in its craftsmanship, and a roaring evening of literate hilarity into the bargain."
The play ran for 739 performances, which may not seem like much now, but was astonishing for an era in which 200 performances was considered a solid hit. Is there anything else we should say before the show begins?
Well, a quick note about the authors. When Kaufman and Hart wrote this play, they were the most successful writing team working in the American theatre. They'd won the Pulitzer Prize 3 years earlier for their now classic You Can't Take It With You. Also, they based the main character, Sheridan Whiteside, played tonight by the wonderful Nathan Lane, on their longtime friend, the writer, critic, and radio personality, Alexander Woollcott, who was famous for his sardonic wit and his peevish temper.
A friend of Kaufman's rang him up at 9:30 one evening and asked what he was doing for dinner. "Digesting it," he replied. For us, that will come later. In the meantime, let's dig into the first course of tonight's rich comic feast as the curtain goes up on Act 1 of The Man Who Came to Dinner.
You're a quack if I ever saw one!
4 more cablegrams and more packages. Dad is going crazy upstairs with that bell ringing all the time.
Oh, dear. June, will you go? What did you say, Richard?
One is from New York and one from San Francisco.
There was something from Alaska early this morning.
Yes? Yes, that's right.
Who is it?
Doesn't that bird brain of yours have a function?
I'll get them right away.
He wants some Players Club cigarettes.
Players Club?
They have them at Kitchener's. I'll run down and get them.
Yes, yes, I'm waiting.
Tell me, Miss Preen, are they bringing him out soon?
We're getting him out of bed now. He'll be out very soon.
Oh, I'm so glad. He must be very happy.
Trapped like a rat in this hellhole!
Hello? Yes, he's here.
Take your dirty fish hooks off me!
But he can't come to the phone right now.
There's never a cop when you need one!
London? It's London calling for Mr. Whiteside.
London, my love.
2 he could talk then. All right. Who do you think that was? Mr. H.G. Wells from London!
H.G. Wells? On our telephone.
I'll go. This certainly is a busy house.
Oh, that's fine. Sarah, is it fresh?
Yes, ma'am.
You move like a broken down truck horse.
His voice is just the same as on the radio.
Good morning! Oh, girls, what do you think? He's getting up and coming out today. You don't mean it! Can we stay and see him? Why, of course, he'd love it. Oh. Girls, do you know what just happened?
I'll be upstairs, Mother, if you want me.
What? Oh, yes, June. Tell your father he'd better come down, will you? Mr. Whiteside is coming out.
Yes, Mother.
I brought him a plant. Do you think it's all right if I give it to him?
Why, I think that would be lovely.
And some calves foot jelly.
Why, how nice. Who do you think was on the phone just now? H.G. Wells from London. He's had calls from all over this country and Europe. The New York Times and Radio City Music Hall. I don't know why they called.
There's a big piece about it in this week's Times. Did you see it?
No, really?
Your name's in it too, Daisy. It tells all about the whole thing. Listen. Sheridan Whiteside, critic, lecturer, wit, radio orator, intimate friend of the great and near great, last week found his celebrated wit no weapon with which to combat a fractured hip. The cosmopolitan Mr. Whiteside, trekking across the country on one of his annual lecture tours, met his Waterloo in the shape of a small piece of ice on the doorstep of Mr. and Mrs. Ernest W. Stanley of Massalia, Ohio. Result: canceled lectures and disappointment to thousands of adoring club women in Omaha, Denver, and Points West. Further result, the idol of the airwaves rests until further notice in home of surprise Mr. and Mrs. Stanley. Possibility, Christmas may be postponed this year. What's that mean?
Why, what do you think of that? A small piece of ice on the doorstep of Mr. and Mrs. Ernest. Oh, think of it.
Of course, if it were my house, Daisy, I'd have a bronze plate put on the step right where he fell.
Well, of course, I felt terrible about it. He just never goes to dinner anywhere, and he finally agreed to come here, and then this had to happen. But it's going to be so wonderful having him with us, even for a little while. We'll sit around in the evening and discuss books and plays, and he'll talk in that wonderful way of his. He may even read Goodbye, Mr. Chips to us.
Daisy, I can't wait any longer. If Mr. Whiteside isn't coming... Oh, good morning, ladies.
Ernest, he's coming out any minute, and we're in time. Look.
Oh, I don't like this kind of publicity at all, Daisy. When do you suppose he's going to leave?
Oh, well, he's only getting out this morning. After all, he's had quite a shock, and he's been in bed for 2 full weeks. He'll certainly have to rest a few days, Ernest.
Pardon me, Mrs. Stanley. Have the cigarettes come yet?
Oh, they're on their way, Miss Cutler. My son went for them.
Thank you.
This is Miss Cutler, Mr. Whiteside's secretary.
How do you do? May I move this chair?
You mean he's coming out now?
He is indeed.
Ernest, call June. June! June! Mr. Whiteside is coming out!
Well, here we are, merry and bright.
Good morning, Dr. Bradley.
Good morning, good morning. Bring our little patient out, Miss Breen.
I may vomit.
Good morning, Mr. Whiteside. I'm Mrs. Ernest Stanley, remember? And this is Mr. Stanley.
How do you do, Mr. Whiteside? I hope that you are better.
Thank you. I am suing you for $150,000.
What's that? What?
I said I am suing you for $150,000.
You mean because you fell on our steps, Mr. Whiteside?
Samuel J. Leibowitz will explain it to you in court. Who were those 2 harpies standing there like the kiss of death?
Oh, dear. my calf's foot jelly.
Made from your own foot, I have no doubt. And now, Mrs. Stanley, I have a few small matters to take up with you. Since this corner druggist at my elbow tells me that I shall be confined to this moldy mortuary for at least another 10 days, due entirely to your stupidity and negligence, I shall have to carry on my activities as best I can. I shall require the exclusive use of this room, as well as that drafty sewer which you call the library. I want no one to come in or out while I am in this room.
What do you mean, sir?
But we have to go up the stairs to get to our rooms, Mr. Whiteside.
Isn't there a back entrance?
Why, yes.
Then use that. I shall also require a room for my secretary, Miss Cutler. Let me see. I shall have a great many incoming and outgoing calls, so please do not use the telephone. I sleep until noon and require quiet through the house until that hour. There will be 5 for lunch today. Where is the cook?
Mr. Whiteside, if I may interrupt for a moment.
You may not, sir. Will you take your clammy hands off my chair? You have the touch of a sex-starved cobra. And now will you all leave quietly, or must I ask my secretary to pass among you with a baseball bat?
Well, goodbye, Daisy. We'll call you. Oh, no, we mustn't use the phone. Well, we'll see you.
Now look here, Mr. Whiteside.
There is nothing to discuss, sir. Considering the damage I have suffered at your hands, I am asking very little. Good day.
I'll call you from the office later, Daisy.
Not on this phone, please. Here is the menu for lunch.
But I've already ordered lunch.
It will be sent up to you on a tray. I'm using the dining room for my guests. Where are those cigarettes?
Oh, why, my son went for them. I don't know why. Here, Sarah, I'll have mine upstairs on a tray.
Young lady, will you either go up those stairs or come down them? I cannot stand indecision.
Good morning. I'm sorry I was so long. I had to go to 3 different stores.
How did you travel? By ox cart? Is there a man in the world who suffers as I do from the gross inadequacies of the human race? What are you doing? Fluffing the pillow or milking it? Go in and read the life of Florence Nightingale and learn how unfitted you are for your chosen profession.
Well, I think I can safely leave you in Miss Cutler's capable hand. Shall I look in again this afternoon?
If you do, I shall spit right in your eye.
What a sense of humor you writers have. Oh, by the way, it isn't really worth mentioning, but I've been doing a little writing myself about my medical experiences.
Am I to be spared nothing?
Would it be too much to ask you to glance over it while you're here?
Trapped.
I just happen to have a copy with me. 40 years an Ohio doctor. The story of a humble practitioner.
I shall lose no time in reading it, if you know what I mean.
Well, much obliged, and I hope you like it. Well, see you on the morrow. Keep that hip quiet and don't forget those little pills.
Mm-hmm. Maggie, will you take 40 years below the navel, or whatever it's called?
I must say you have certainly behaved with all your accustomed grace and charm.
Look here, Puss, I am in no mood to discuss my behavior, good or bad. I had no desire to cross this cheerless threshold. I was hounded and badgered into it. I now find myself, after 2 weeks of racking pain, accused of behaving without charm. What would you have me do, kiss them?
Very well, Sherry. After 10 years, I should have known better than to try to do anything about your manners. But when I finally give up this job, I may write a book about it all. Cavalcade of Insult, or Through the Years with Prince Charming.
Listen, Repulsive. You are tied to me with an umbilical cord made of piano wire. And now, if we may dismiss the subject of my charm, for which, incidentally, I receive $1,500 per appearance, possibly we could go to work. Oh, no, we can't. Yes?
My name is Harriet Stanley. I know you are Sheridan Whiteside. I saw this holly framed green against the pine trees. I remembered what you had written about Tess and Jude the Obscure. It was the nicest present I could bring you.
For God's sake, what was that?
That was Mr. Stanley's sister, Harriet. I've talked to her a few times. She's quite strange.
Strange? She's right out of The Hound of the Baskervilles. You know, I've seen that face before somewhere.
Nonsense, you couldn't have.
Oh, well, let's get down to work. Here, press this in the doctor's book. What date is this?
December 10th.
Send a wire to Columbia Broadcasting. You can schedule my Christmas Eve broadcast from the New York studio, as I shall return east instead of proceeding to Hollywood. Stop. For special New Year's Eve broadcast, we'll have as my guests Yasha Heifetz, Catherine Cornell, Schiaparelli, and the Lunts, with Haile Selassie on shortwave from Ethiopia, Whiteside.
Are you sure you'll be all right by Christmas, Sherry?
Of course I will. Send a cable to Mahatma Gandhi, Bombay, India. Dear Boo-Boo. Schedule changed. Can you meet me Calcutta, July 12th? Dinner 8:30, Whiteside. Arturo Toscanini, where is he?
I'll find him.
Counting on you, January 4th, Metropolitan Opera House, my annual benefit, Home for Paroled Convicts. As you know, this is a very worthy cause and close to my heart. Tibbet Rethberg, Martinelli, and Flogstad have promised me personally to appear. Will you have quiet supper with me and Ethel Barrymore afterwards, Whiteside? If that's for Mrs. Stanley, tell them she's too drunk to talk.
Hello? Hollywood.
If it's Goldwyn, hang up.
Hello? Banjo!
Banjo! Give me that phone.
Banjo, you old so-and-so. How are you, darling?
Come on, give me that.
Shut up, Sherry.
Oh.
Are you coming East, Banjo? I miss you. No, we're not going to Hollywood. Oh, he's going to live.
Stop driveling and give me the phone!
In fact, he's screaming at me now. Here he is.
How are you, you fawns behind? And what are you giving me for Christmas? What news, Banjo, my boy? How's the picture coming? How are Wacko and Sloppo? No, I'm all right. Yes, I'm in very good hands. Dr. Frankenstein is taking care of me. What about you? Having any fun? Playing any cribbage? What? Well, don't take all his money. Leave a little bit for me. You what? Having your portrait painted? Not really. How many coats? No, I'm going back to New York from here. I'll be there for 12 days, and then I go to Dartmouth for the Drama Festival. The Drama Festival? Oh, you wouldn't understand. Well, I can't waste my time talking to Hollywood riffraff. Kiss Luella Parsons for me. You know where. Goodbye. He took $1,400 from Sam Goldwyn in cribbage last night. And Sam said, Banjo, I will never play garbage with you again.
What's all this about his having his portrait painted?
Salvador Dali. That's all that face of his needs. A surrealist to paint it. Now, what do you want, little Miss Bedpan?
It's your pills. One every 45 minutes.
Thank you. And by the way, I loved you in Rebecca. Now, where were we?
Here's a cable from that dear friend of yours, Lorraine Sheldon.
Oh, let me see it.
Sherry, my poor sweet lamb, have been in Scotland on a shooting party with Lord and Lady Cunard and only just heard of your poor sweet hip. Am down here in Surrey with Lord Bottomley, sailing Wednesday on the Normandy, and cannot wait to see my poor sweet Sherry, your blossom girl, Lorraine. In the words of the master, I may vomit.
Don't be bitter, Puss, just because Lorraine is more beautiful than you are.
Lorraine Sheldon is a very fair example of that small but vicious circle you move in.
Your sex jealousy if I ever saw it. Give me the rest of those.
Lorraine Sheldon, Lord Bottomley, my Aunt Fanny.
It's from Destiny's Tot.
England's little rover boy?
Mm-hmm. Dear baby's breath, what is this I hear about a hip fractured in some bordello brawl? Does this mean our Hollywood Christmas party is off? Finish the new play in Pango Pango, and it's superb. Myself and a ukulele leave Honolulu tomorrow, in that order. By the way, the Sultan of Zanzibar wants to meet Ginger Rogers. Let's face it, Beverly.
He does travel, doesn't he? You know, it'd be nice if the world went around Beverly Carlton for a change.
Well, Hollywood next week? Why couldn't he stop over on his way to New York? Send him a cable. Beverly Carlton, Royal Hawaiian Hotel, Honolulu. Oh, if these people intend to have their friends using the front door...
What do you want them to me use? A rope ladder?
I will not have a lot of mildewed pus bags rushing in and out of this house.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Jefferson.
Good morning, John.
There's nobody home. The Stanleys have been arrested for white slavery. Go away.
Morning, Mr. Whiteside. I'm Jefferson of the Visalia Journal.
Oh, really? Get rid of him.
I'm sorry, Mr. Whiteside is seeing no one.
Really?
So, will you please excuse us? Good day.
Mr. Whiteside seems to be sitting up and taking notice.
I'm afraid he isn't taking notice of the Visalia Journal. Do you mind?
You know, if I'm going to be insulted, I'd like it to be by Mr. Whiteside himself. I never did like carbon copies.
Ooh, touche, if I ever heard one. And in Visalia, too, Maggie dear.
Will you please leave?
How about an interview, Mr. Whiteside?
I never give them. Go away.
Now, Mr. Whiteside, if I don't get this interview, I lose my job.
That would be quite all right with me.
You don't mean that, Mr. Whiteside. You used to be a newspaper man yourself. You know what editors are like. Well, mine's the toughest one that ever lived.
You won't get around me that way. If you don't like them, get off the paper.
Yes, but I happen to think it's a good paper. William Allen White could have got out of Emporia, but he didn't.
You have the effrontery in my presence to compare yourself with William Allen White.
Only in the sense that William Allen White stayed in Emporia, and I want to stay here and say what I want to say.
Such as what?
Oh, I couldn't put it into words, Mr. Whiteside. It'd sound like an awful lot of hooey. But the Journal was my father's paper. It's kind of a sentimental point with me, the paper. I'd like to carry on where he left off.
Just a minute. Then this terrifying editor, this dread journalistic apocalypse is you?
Yes, in a word.
In future, Sherry, I wish you'd let me know when you don't want to talk to people. I'll usher them right in.
You may approach. I suppose you've written that great American novel.
No, I've written that great American play.
Well, I don't want to read it, but you can send me your paper. I'll take a year's subscription. Do you write the editorials, too?
Every one of them.
And I know just what they're like. Me, I'm afraid you're that noble young newspaper man. Crusading, idealistic, dull. Very good casting, too.
You're not bad casting yourself, Mr. Whiteside.
We won't discuss it. Do these tired old eyes spy a box of goodies over there? Hand them to me on your way out.
The trouble is, Mr. Whiteside, that your being in this town comes under the heading of news. Practically the biggest news since the Depression.
Pecan butternut fudge. Yum.
Oh, my, you mustn't eat candy, Mr. Whiteside. It's very bad for you.
My great-aunt Jennifer ate a whole box of candy every day of her life. She lived to be 102. And when she had been dead 3 days, she looked better than you do now. What were you saying, old fellow?
I can at least report to my readers that chivalry is not yet dead.
We won't discuss it. Well, now that you've won me with your pretty ways, what do you want?
How about a brief talk on famous murders? You're an authority on murder as a fine art.
My dear boy, when I talk about murder, I get paid for it, so don't expect to get it for nothing.
Well, but what do you think of Visalia? How long are you going to be here? Where are you going? Things like that.
Oh, very well. A, Visalia is a town of irresistible charm. B, I cannot wait to get out of it. And C, I am going from here to Crockfield for my semi-annual visit to the Crockfield Home for Paroled Convicts, for which I have raised over $500,000 in the last 5 years. From there, I go to New York. Have you ever been to Crockfield, Jefferson?
No, I haven't.
As a newspaper man, you ought to go instead of wasting your time with me. It's only about 75 miles from here. Did you ever hear how Crockfield started?
No, I didn't.
Sit down, Jefferson. It is one of the most endearing and touching stories of our generation. One misty St. Valentine's Eve, the year was 1901, a little old lady who had given her name to an era, Victoria, lay dying in Windsor Castle. Maud Adams had not yet caused every young heart to swell as she tripped across the stage as Peter Pan. Irving Berlin had not yet written the first notes of a ragtime rigadoon that was to set the nation's feet a-tapping. And Elias P. Crockfield was just emerging from the state penitentiary. Destitute, embittered, cruel of heart, he wandered on this St. Valentine's Eve into a little church. But there was no godliness in his heart that night, no prayer upon his lips. In the faltering twilight, Elias P. Crockfield made his way toward the poor box. With callous fingers, he ripped open this poignant testimony of a simple people's faith. Greedily, he clutched at the few pitiful coins within. And then, a child's wavering treble broke the twilight stillness. "Please, Mr. Man," said a little girl's voice, "won't you be my Valentine?" Elias P. Crockfield turned. There stood before him a bewitching little creature of 5, her yellow curls cascading over her shoulders like a golden Niagara in her tiny outstretched hand. A humble Valentine. In that one crystal moment, a sealed door opened in the heart of Elias P. Crockfield, and in his mind was born an idea. 25 years later, 3,000 ruddy-cheeked convicts were frolicking on the broad lawns of Crockfield Home and in the cool depths of its swimming pool, broadcasting with their own symphony orchestra from their own radio station. Elias P. Crockfield has long since gone to his maker, but the little girl of the golden curls, now grown to lovely womanhood, is known as the Angel of Crockfield, for she is the wife of the warden. And in the main hall of Crockfield, between a Rembrandt and an El Greco, there hangs in a simple little frame that humble Valentine.
And in the men's washroom every Christmas Eve, the ghost of Elias P. Crockfield appears in one of the stalls. Will you sign this, please?
This aging debutante, Mr. Jefferson, I retain in my employ only because she is the sole support of her two-headed brother.
I understand. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Whiteside. You've been very kind. By the way, I'm a cribbage player if you need one while you're here.
Fine. How much can you afford to lose?
I usually win.
We won't discuss that. Come back at 8:30. We'll play three-handed with Shirley Temple. Shirley! Metz! Metz! You incredible beetle hound! What are you doing here?
I explain, Sherry. But first I kiss my little Maggie.
Darling, what a wonderful
The
surprise.
enchanted Metz, Jefferson. You are standing in the presence of one of the great men of our time, Professor Adolf Metz, the world's foremost authority on insect life.
How do you do?
How do you do?
And stop looking at me adoringly and tell me why you're here.
You are sick, Sherry, so I come to cheer you.
Jefferson, would you believe that 8 volumes could be written on the mating instinct of the female white ant? He did it.
7 on the female, Sherry, 1 on the male.
He rates 3 pages in the Encyclopedia Britannica, don't you, my little hookworm?
Oh, please, Sherry, you embarrass me. Look, I have brought you a present to while away the hours, please. I said to my students, boys and girls, I want to give a present to my sick friend Sheridan Whiteside. So you know what we did? We made for you a community of Periplaneta Americana, commonly known as the American cockroach. Behold, Sherry, Roach City. Inside here are 10,000 cockroaches. 10,000? Sarah! Sarah! And in 1 week, Sherry, if all goes well, there will be 50,000. Here in Roach City, they play, they make love, they mate, they die. See, here is the graveyard. They even bury their own dead. Look, here is where they store their grain. Here is the commissary of the aristocracy. Here is the maternity hospital. It is fascinating. They do everything that human beings do. Ooh, with these earphones, Sherry, you listen to the mating calls. There are microphones down inside. Listen.
How long has this been going on?
Periplaneta Americana! There are cockroaches in this house!
Mr. Whiteside, I don't know who this man is, but I will not stand here.
Then go upstairs. These are probably my luncheon guests. Metz, you're staying for the day, of course.
Certainly.
Jefferson, stay for lunch.
Glad to.
Maggie, tell them there'll be 2 more. Now, come right in, Baker. Good morning, gentlemen. Jefferson, here are the fruits of that humble Valentine. These men, now serving the final months of their prison terms, have chosen to enter the ivy-covered walls of Crockfield. They have come here today to learn from me a little of its tradition. Gentlemen, I envy you your great adventure. You're Michelson, aren't you? Butcher Shop Murders?
Yes, sir.
Thought I recognized you. The one in the middle, Jefferson, is Henderson the Hatchet Fiend. Always chop them up in a salad bowl, remember?
Ooh, yes.
Lunch is ready, Mr. Whiteside.
Good. Let's go right in, gentlemen. We're having chicken livers tetrazzini and cherries jubilee for dessert.
Ooh.
Yes. Serve the white wine with the fish gone and close the doors. I don't want a lot of people prying on their betters. was dreaming of Lillian Russell, and I awake to find you.
Your medicine, Mr. Whiteside.
Oh. What time is it?
About 6:30.
Where is Miss Cutler?
She went out.
Out?
With Mr. Jefferson.
All right, if I turn the lights up, Mr. Whiteside?
Yes, go right ahead, John.
And Sarah has something for you, Mr. Whiteside. Made it special.
She has. Where is she? My souffle queen?
Here I am, Mr. Whiteside.
Ah, she walks in beauty like the night, and in those deft hands there is the art of Michelangelo. Let me taste the new creation. Poetry, sheer poetry.
I put a touch of absinthe in the dough. Do you like it?
Ambrosia.
And I got you your terrapin Maryland for dinner.
Ah, I have known but 3 great cooks in my time. The Khedive of Egypt had one, my great-aunt Jennifer another, and the third, Sarah, is you.
Oh, Mr. Whiteside.
Tell me, how would you like to come to New York and work for me? You and Johnny.
Hey, Mr. Whiteside.
Sarah!
It takes my breath away.
Mr. Whiteside, it would be wonderful, but what would we say to Mr. and Mrs. Stanley?
Just goodbye.
But they'd be awfully mad, wouldn't they? They've been very kind to us.
Well, if they ever come to New York, we can have them for dinner if I'm not in town. Now, run along and think it over. This is our little secret just between us, and put plenty of sherry in that terrapin. Miss Preen! Miss Preen!
Yes, yes!
What have you gotten there anyway? A sailor?
I was just washing my hands.
What time did Miss Cutler go out?
A couple of hours ago.
Mr. Jefferson called for her?
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. Go back to your sex life.
Dear Mr. Whiteside, may I show you a few mementos of the past? I somehow feel that you would love them as I do.
I'd be delighted. Miss Stanley, haven't we met somewhere before?
Oh, no, I would have remembered it. It would have been one of my cherished memories.
Ah.
Like these. Look, here I am with my first sweetheart under our lovely beechwood tree. I was 8 and he was 10. I have never forgotten him. What happy times. There's someone coming. I'll come back. Now, Ernest, please.
Be quiet, Daisy. Mr. Whiteside, I want to talk to you. I don't care whether you're busy or not. I've stood all I'm going to stand.
Indeed.
Yeah, this is the last straw. I have just received the bill from the telephone company for $784. Oklahoma City, Calcutta, Hollywood, Australia, Rome, New York, 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 New York. Now, I realize, Mr. Whiteside, that you are a distinguished man of letters.
Yes, of course, we both do.
Please. But in the past week, we have not been able to call our souls our own. We have not had a meal in the dining room once. I have to tiptoe out of the house in the morning.
No, Ernest.
I come home to find convicts sitting at my dinner table. Butcher shop murderers. A man putting cockroaches in my kitchen.
Just escaped, Ernest.
Well, that's not the point. I go into the bathroom and bump into 22 Chinese students that you invited here. I go down into the cellar this morning and trip over that octopus that William Beebe sent you. I tell you, I won't stand for it. Mr. Whiteside, I want you to leave this house as soon as you can and go to a hotel.
May I remind you again, Mr. Stanley, that I am not a willing guest in this house. I am informed by my doctor that I must remain quiet for another 10 days. At which time I shall get out of here so fast that the wind will knock you over, I hope. If, however, you insist on my leaving before that, thereby causing me to suffer a relapse, I shall sue you for every additional day that I am held inactive, which will amount, I assure you, to a tidy sum.
This is outrageous.
As for the details of your petty complaints, those 22 Chinese students came straight from the White House, where I assure you they used the bathroom, too.
Mr. Whiteside, my husband didn't mean.
Oh, yes, I did. I meant every word.
There is only one point that you make in which I see some slight justice. I do not expect you to pay for my telephone calls, and I shall see to it that restitution is made. Can you provide me with the exact amount?
I certainly can. can, and I certainly will.
Good. I shall instruct my lawyers to deduct it from the $150,000 that I am suing you for.
You mustn't get excited. Remember, Mr. Whiteside is a guest here.
And I'll thank you not to trip over that octopus, which once belonged to Calvin Coolidge. Give me the Massalia Journal, please. Oh. Hello, Journal. Is Mr. Jefferson there? When do you expect him? No message.
Dude, did you see the way she looked at me when I came around the...
Come here, you two! Come on, I'm not going to bite you. Now look here, I am by nature a gracious and charming person. If I err at all, it is on the side of kindness and amiability. I've been observing you two for this past week, and you seem to me to be extremely likable young people. I'm afraid that when we first met, I was definitely unpleasant to you. For that, I am sorry. And I wish that in the future you would not treat me like something out of Edgar Allan Poe. How do you like my new tie?
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside. This makes things much pleasanter, and I think your tie is very pretty.
Well, now that we're on speaking terms, Mr. Whiteside, I don't mind telling you that I've been admiring all your ties.
You like this one?
I certainly do.
It's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside.
Really, this curious legend that I am a difficult person is pure fabrication. Ice skating, me. I used to cut figure eights myself. Arm in arm with Betsy Ross, waving the flag behind us. Well.
Well, it was wonderful on the ice today. Miss Cutler and Mr. Jefferson were there.
Maggie? Skating?
Oh, yes, and she's good, too. I got a marvelous picture of her.
Were they still there when you left?
I think so.
Yes, they were.
Say, Mr. Whiteside, would you mind if I got a picture of you? I'd love to have one.
Very well. Do you want my profile?
I'm afraid you're done for now, Mr. Whiteside. My brother is a camera fiend.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside. I got a great one.
Hello, Miss Cutler.
Hello, Miss Cutler.
Hello there. Good evening, Sherry, dear. Really, Sherry, you've got this room looking like an old parrot cage. Did you nap while I was out? What's the matter, dear? Cat run away with your tongue?
Don't look at me with those great cow eyes, you sex-ridden hag. Where have you been all afternoon? Alley-catting around with Bert Jefferson?
Sherry, Bert read his play to me this afternoon. It's superb.
Oh.
It isn't just that play written by a newspaper man. It's superb. I want you to read it tonight. It just cries out for Cornell. If you like it, will you send it to us, Sherry, and will you read it tonight?
No, I will not read it tonight or any other time. And while we're on the subject of Mr. Jefferson, you might ask him if he wouldn't like to pay your salary, since he takes up all your time.
Oh, come now, Sherry. It isn't as bad as that.
I have not even been able to reach you, not knowing what haylofts you frequent.
Stop behaving like a spoiled child, Sherry.
Don't take that patronizing tone with me, you flea-bitten Cleopatra. I am sick and tired of your sneaking out like some lovesick high school girl every time my back is turned.
Well, Sherry... I'm afraid you hit the nail on the head.
Stop acting like Zazu Pitts and explain yourself.
I'll make it quick, Sherry. I'm in love.
Nonsense. This is merely delayed puberty.
No, Sherry, I'm afraid this is it. You're going to lose a very excellent secretary.
You are out of your mind.
Yes, I think I am a little, but I'm a girl who's waited a long time for this to happen, and now it has. Mr. Jefferson doesn't know it yet, but oh, I'm going to try my darndest to marry him.
Is that all?
Yes, except that... Well, I guess this is what might be called my resignation as soon as you've got someone else.
Now listen to me, Maggie. We've been together for a long time. You are indispensable to me, but I think I am unselfish enough not to let that stand in the way where your happiness is concerned, because whether you know it or not, I have a deep affection for you.
I know that, Sherry.
That being the case, I will not stand by and allow you to make a fool of yourself.
I'm not, Sherry.
You are, my dear. You are behaving like Tilly the toiler. It's incredible. I cannot believe that a girl who for the past 10 years has had the great of the world served up on a platter before her. I cannot believe that it is anything but a kind of temporary insanity when you are swept off your feet in 7 days by a second-rate small-town newspaper man.
Sherry, I can't explain how it's happened. I can only tell you that it's so. It's hard for me to believe, too, Sherry. Here I am, a hard-bitten old cynic, behaving like True Story magazine and liking it. Discovering the moon and ice skating. I keep laughing to myself all the time, but there it is. What can I do about it, Sherry? I'm in love.
We're leaving here tomorrow, hip or no hip. We're leaving here tomorrow. I don't care if I fracture the other one. Get me a train schedule and start packing. I'll pull you out of this, Miss Stardust. I'll get the ants out of those moonlit pants.
It's no good, Sherry. I would be back on the next Streamline train.
It's completely unbelievable. Can you see yourself? The wife of the editor of the Massalia Journal. Having an evening at home for Mr. and Mrs. Stanley. Mr. and Mrs. Poopface. And the members of the Book of the Month Club.
Sherry, I've had 10 years of the great figures of our time, and don't think I'm not grateful to you for it. I've loved every minute of it. They've been wonderful years, gay and stimulating. Why, I don't think anyone's ever had the fun we've had, but a girl can't laugh all the time, Sherry. There comes a time when she wants Bert Jefferson. Oh, you don't know Bert, Sherry. He's gentle and he's unassuming and... Well, I love him, that's all.
I see. Well, I remain completely unconvinced. You are drugging yourself into this Joan Crawford fantasy. And before you become completely anesthetized, I shall do everything in my power to bring you to your senses.
Now, you listen to me, Whiteside. I know you. Lay off. I know what a devil you can be. I've seen you do it to other people, but don't you dare do it to me. Don't drug yourself into the idea that all you're thinking of is my happiness. You're thinking of yourself a little bit, too, and all those months of breaking in somebody new. I've seen you in a passion before when your life has been disrupted, and you couldn't dine in Calcutta on July 12th with Boo-Boo. Well, that's too bad, but there it is. I am going to marry Bert, if he'll have me. And don't you dare try any of your tricks. I'm on to every one of them, so lay off! That's my message to you, big Lord Fauntleroy.
Long distance, please. I want to put in a transatlantic call. Hello, transatlantic operator. This is Massalia 142. I want to talk to Miss Lorraine Sheldon. S-H-E-L-D-O-N. She's on the Normandy. It sailed from Southampton day before yesterday. Will it take long? All right, my name is Whiteside. Thank you.
Good evening, John.
Good evening, Doctor.
Well, good evening, Mr. Whiteside.
Come back tomorrow. I'm busy.
Now, what would be the best news I could possibly bring you?
You have hydrophobia.
Mr. Whiteside, you are a well man. You can get up and walk now. You can leave here tomorrow.
What do you mean?
Well, sir, I looked at those x-rays again this morning, and you know what? I've been looking at the wrong x-rays. I have been looking at old Mrs. Moffat's x-rays. You are perfectly, absolutely well.
Lower your voice, will you? Old Mrs. Moffat's x-rays!
What's the matter? Aren't you pleased?
Delighted. Naturally. This is a very unexpected bit of news, however. It comes at a very curious moment. Dr. Bradley, I have some good news for you, too. I have been reading your book. 40 years... what is it?
40 years, an Ohio doctor?
Yes. I consider it extremely close to being one of the great literary contributions of our time.
Mr. Whiteside!
So strongly do I feel about it, Dr. Bradley, that I have a proposition to make to you. Just here and there, the book is a little uneven, a little rough. What I would like to do is to stay here in Massalia and work with you on it.
Mr. Whiteside, I'd be so terribly honored.
Yes. There is just one difficulty, you see. If my lecture bureau and my radio sponsors were to learn that I am well, they would insist on my fulfilling my contracts, and I would be forced to leave Massalia. Therefore, we must not tell anyone, not anyone at all, that I am well.
I see.
Not even Miss Cutler, you understand?
No, I won't. Not a soul. Not even my wife.
That's fine.
When do we start work? Tonight? I've got just one patient that's dying, and then I'll be perfectly free.
Tomorrow morning. This is a private call, would you forgive me? Hello. Yes, I'm on. Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning it is. Good night.
Good night.
You made me very proud, Mr. Whiteside.
Yes, I know. Very proud. Hello. Yes, this is Whiteside. Put her through. Hello. Is this my Blossom girl? How are you, my lovely? No, I'm all right. Yes, still out here. Lorraine, dear, when do you land in New York? Tuesday. That's fine. Now listen closely, my pet. I've great news for you. I've discovered a wonderful play with an enchanting part in it for you. Cornell would give her eye teeth to play it, but I think I can get it for you. Now, wait. Let me tell you, the author is a young newspaper man in this town. Of course, he wants Cornell. But if you jump on a train and get right out here, I think you could swing it if you play your cards right. No, he's young and very attractive and just your dish, my dear. It just takes a little doing, and you're the girl that can do it. Isn't that exciting, my pet? Yes, that's right. And look, don't send me any messages. Just get on a train and arrive. And don't mention the play to Maggie. You know what a friend she is to Kit Cornell. Oh, no, don't thank me, my darling. It's perfectly all right. Have a nice trip and hurry out here. Yes. Goodbye, my Blossom. Hello, Miss Breen. My God, you're looking radiant this evening.
Sherry, I'm sorry for what I said before. I'm afraid I was a little unjust.
Oh, that's all right, Maggie, dear. We all lose our tempers now and then.
I promised to have dinner with Bert and go to a movie, but we'll come back and play cribbage with you instead.
Fine.
See you soon, Sherry, dear.
Eyes does a little rabbit in the sunshine. Eyes does a little rabbit in the rain. I nibble on my lettuce leaf all morning and mosey down that pretty little lane.
As is the little rabbit in the sunshine. It almost makes your teeth ache, doesn't it? You might think that no one could really be that obnoxious, but in fact, a tendency to lapse into baby talk was just one of the many unappealing habits perpetrated by Alexander Walcott, the real-life model for Sheridan Whiteside.
James Thurber dubbed him Old Vitriol and Violet. Harpo Marx thought he looked like a balloon that had gotten loose from the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
Noel Coward called him a caged cobra. Howard Dietz gave him the nickname Louisa May Walcott.
And George S. Kaufman described him in the single word, improbable.
Barbarian.
Who's a Misa?
Definitely a barbarian. If you ever again attempt to serve me brandy in a dinky little glass like this, I shall be forced to take action. I may strangle you with my own hands, or I may merely shriek.
It won't happen again, sir.
Plump, owl-faced and acid-tongued, Walcott began his career as a newspaperman and critic. His terse review for one unfortunate woman's book of poetry entitled "And I Shall Make Music" was "Not on my carpet, lady." He found fame and notoriety on the radio with his show The Town Crier, in which he mixed cruel cynicism with shameless pathos, the twin hallmarks of his personality.
Although many were terrified of him, Walcott himself feared only one man, George S. Kaufman. That fear was mixed with admiration for Kaufman's razor-sharp mind and acerbic wit, especially when aimed at things theatrical. Walcott took great delight in a remark his friend made to a woman who had talked non-stop throughout the first act of a play. "Madam, have you no unexpressed thoughts?" And often quoted a line from a review Kaufman wrote when he was a young critic at the New York Times. "I saw the play under bad conditions. The curtain was up."
The genesis of The Man Who Came to Dinner stemmed from a visit that Walcott made some years earlier to Moss Hart's house in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. A house, incidentally, whose grounds were so extravagantly landscaped that Kaufman once remarked, "This is what God would have done if he'd had the money."
Hart had invited the portly terror to spend the night, and the playwright's own words. This he proceeded to do by immediately demanding my bedroom, all the heat in the house turned off, a frosted milkshake, a large tray of chocolate cake placed at his elbow for him to nibble on, and embarking upon a loud and unprintable discourse on the obvious dishonesty of my servants. Before leaving, Walcott inscribed a note in the guest book. "I wish to say that on my first visit to Moss Hart's house, I had one of the most unpleasant evenings I can ever recall having spent."
Later, while recounting the fiasco to Kaufman, Hart said, "Imagine if he'd broken his leg and had to stay." The partners looked at each other, and as Hart described it, both our rosy little faces lit up at the same time. The germ of the play had been born.
The result was a smash hit, which was made into a movie in 1942 and has been produced by amateurs as well as professionals all over the world, more than 5,000 times since its original Broadway run. The names Kaufman and Hart have become synonymous with a particular brand of urbane, literate comedy, sarcastic and breezy on the surface, a hint of sentiment at the core, and with an unerring sense of dramatic craftsmanship. In the years between their first collaboration in 1930 and both of their deaths in 1961, the partners produced such popular and enduring successes as Once in a Lifetime, Merrily We Roll Along, You Can't Take It With You, and of course, The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Before he started to work with Moss Hart, George S. Kaufman had already enjoyed a long career, first as a newspaperman, then as a playwright and director. For a while, he wore both hats simultaneously and more than once had a hit running on Broadway at the same time that he was a drama critic for the New York Times. Worried about the morality of what could have been seen as a conflict of interest, Kaufman was scrupulous about keeping any mention of his own work out of the Times' theatre column. The press agent for one of his plays once asked, "For God's sake, George, what do I have to do to get your own star's name in the paper?" "Shoot her," said Kaufman.
Known as the Great Collaborator, he worked with 16 different writers in the course of his career, including Ring Lardner, Edna Ferber, Mark Connolly, and Maury Riskant, and turned out dozens of plays, among them The Coconuts and The Animal Crackers for the Marx Brothers, June Moon, The Royal Family, Stage Door, and with the Gershwins of Thee I Sing, the first musical to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Hart went on to individual triumphs of his own as a playwright. Lady in the Dark, his homage to psychoanalysis, comes to mind. As a director, most notably of the original Broadway production of My Fair Lady, and as an author, his autobiography, Act One, remains one of the funniest and most charming books ever written about the theatre. And yet, as a team, the two men seem to have had a special alchemy that consistently produced theatrical gold.
Anne's father and my husband were collaborators, and they wrote their greatest hits, mostly, wouldn't you say, yes? Together.
Definitely.
Moss working with George was pure joy. But you see, Moss had great respect for George. because he was older and he was so well established when Moss came along.
Moss was 25 and my father was 40. So there was quite a difference. He was difficult to work with, as Moss wrote in Act One.
His autobiography.
Moss's autobiography. And my father got up late and he never ate.
Oh, that was the worst part. Moss was always hungry, and he had to go to work with George, and he never ate anything, and he was famished. Oh, it was just so pitiful.
And my father was not a very open person, which Moss was. And so I think, as he writes in Act One, my father didn't even call him Moss for the first 6 months. He would sort of say, because even Moss was a little too intimate, a little too friendly. But he got over that, and he adored Moss. And I think Moss loved him, and then it was a wonderful collaboration.
Well, I can remember many times being dressed to go out for dinner and being slightly late, which Moss hated. And the phone would ring and the butler or the maid would say, "Mr. Hart, it's Mr. Kaufman on the phone." Moss would drop anything. He would keep the car waiting, he would keep the host waiting.
You waiting.
Well, me, it didn't matter, but he would go to the phone because he was always a little bit in awe of George. It was very sweet. It was a wonderful relationship, really wonderful.
I think that The Man Who Came to Dinner is probably the most humorous and the sharpest and the most sophisticated of any of the plays that they wrote.
This particular play has endured because it is a model of three-act play construction informed by some of the wittiest writing that exists in, I think, American comic theater tradition.
It makes people laugh, and it has a kind of wicked side, and it sort of brings out the best and the worst in everybody. And I think that's what makes it work.
And I believe that as soon as an audience starts laughing, they begin falling in love with the characters. And once the audience starts falling in love with the characters, they care about what's going to happen to the characters. They care very much. And feeling the audience get that involved in this play is one of the joys of directing.
My husband and I went to see a play by Simon Gray called The Common Pursuit in 1984, I think it was. And I said, I would like to meet Nathan Lane, that young man who played the editor. And he came in the dressing room and shook hands, and I said to him, "Young man," I said, "someday you'll be able to play Sheridan Whiteside." And I was right.
As a director, it's tremendously satisfying to have the trust of a great artist like Nathan, and our collaboration. You know, I look forward to rehearsals because I know I'm going to be spending time in the room with Nathan. But even on a more basic level, I think he's the actor I never could be, in a way. And the challenge, which he was excited by, was to make sure to motivate Whiteside's temper, his skewering of all the locals, to make sure to give it a reason, you know, and to also make the relationship between himself and his secretary the central relationship in the play. You know, I believe from day one that this is a love story. And it's not so much a love story between Maggie and Bert Jefferson, Whiteside's secretary Maggie, as it is between Whiteside and his secretary. And it's not a romantic love story. It's not a sexual love story. But it's a story about a man who has a very difficult time with close relationships. I felt I had a tremendous responsibility to bring a classic piece of writing to life in a way that the authors would have hopefully approved of, you know. And that weighs heavily, particularly when things are not going well. And now that the play is open and running and audiences are loving it, it's very satisfying. And it's tremendous relief, actually, to have brought it in for a safe landing.
Like his alter ego, Walcott had scores of friends and acquaintances who coined the phrase, always a godfather, never a god, and at the same time never had any truly intimate relationships. Once at a party for the English writer Rebecca West, he knelt at the guest of honor's feet, put his arms round her, and then stood up and said, "That's my sex life in 1933.
Although the part of Sheridan Whiteside was played on Broadway by former Yale professor Monty Woolley, Walcott eventually took on the role himself, starring in the West Coast production. When an illness forced him to miss a few performances, Kaufman jumped on a train to California to fill in.
Kaufman also appeared as Whiteside at the Bucks County Playhouse with Hart in the role of Beverly Carlton and old pal Harpo Marx playing Banjo, the character he inspired.
Walcott died on January 23, 1943, fittingly in the middle of a radio broadcast. Of his many friends, none was more loyal than George Kaufman, who in a rare reflective mood said, "Life without Alec is like a play with a crucial scene dropped. It still plays, but something good has gone out of it."
Thanks to Kaufman and Hart, Walcott's spirit remains alive in the guise of Sheridan Whiteside. The curtain's about to go up, so let's return to the Stanley household, turned topsy-turvy by its scheming visitor. Meanwhile, unaware of the part she is about to play in Whiteside's machinations, actress and femme fatale Lorraine Sheldon is steaming back to the States aboard the luxury liner Normandy for a reunion with her poor dear Sherry in Act 2 of The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Well, I guess that's all there are, Miss Cutler. They're all under the tree.
Thank you, John.
My, I never saw anyone get so many Christmas presents. I can hardly wait to see what's in them.
Little Mr. Whiteside opened them, Miss Cutler.
Well, John, you see, Christmas is Mr. Whiteside's personal property. He invented it, and it belongs to him. First thing tomorrow morning, Mr. Whiteside will open each and every present, and there will be the damnedest fuss you ever saw.
My, look who he's got presents from. Deanna Durbin, Billy Rose, Ethel Waters, Somerset Markham. I can hardly wait for tomorrow. My, it certainly is wonderful. Mr. Whiteside's tree is so beautiful, too. Mr. and Mrs. Stanley had to put theirs in their bedroom, you know. They can hardly undress at night.
Hello, Maggie. Merry Christmas, Sarah.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Jefferson.
Say, business is good, isn't it? My, what a little quiet blackmail and a weekly radio hour can get you. What did his sponsors give him?
They gave him a full year's supply of their product, cream of mush.
Well, he'll give it right back to them on the air.
Wait till you hear tonight's broadcast, old fella. It's so sticky, I haven't been able to get it off my fingers since I copied it.
I'll bet. Look, I'll come clean. Under the influence of God knows what, I have just bought you a Christmas present.
Why, Mr. Jefferson, sir.
Well, they'd like you to see it before I throw away my hard-earned money. Can you run downtown with me and take a look at it?
Bert, this is very sweet of you. I'm quite touched. What is it? I can't wait.
A 2-year subscription to Boy's Life. Do you think I'm gonna tell you? Come on down and see!
Sherry, I'm going out for a while with John D. Rockefeller. I won't be long.
Noel, Mr. W. How about some cribbage tonight after your broadcast?
No, I will not play cribbage with you, Klondike Harry. You have been swindling the bejesus out of me for 2 weeks. Where are you off to now, Madame Butterfly?
I'm being given a Christmas present. Anything you want done downtown?
Yes, bring baby a lollipop. What are you giving me for Christmas, Jefferson? I have enriched your feeble life beyond your capacity to repay me.
Yes, that's what I figured, so I'm not giving you anything.
I see. Well, I was giving you my old trust, but now I shan't. Maggie, what time are those radio men coming?
About 6:30. I'll be here. Sherry, you've got to cut. You're 4 minutes over. Oh, by the way, there was a wire from Beverly. It's there somewhere. He doesn't know what train he can get out of Chicago, but he will be here sometime tonight.
Good. Is he staying overnight?
No, he has to get right out again. He's sailing Friday on the Queen Mary.
I think I could peek in at the window and take a look at him. Beverly Carlton used to be one of my heroes.
Used to be, you ink-stained hack. Beverly Carlton is the greatest single talent in the English theater today. Take this illiterate numbskull out of my sight, Maggie, and don't bring him back.
Yes, Mr. Whiteside, sir.
Where are we going, Bert? I want to know what you bought me. I'm like a 10-year-old kid.
You know, you look like a 10-year-old kid right now, Maggie, at that.
You know, you look like a 10-year-old kid, Maggie. Will you give me the mansion house, please? No, I don't know the number. I assume that's why they hired you! Hello, mansion house. Tell me, has a Miss Lorraine Sheldon arrived yet? Sheldon? S-H-E-L-D. Oh, yes, that's right, Miss Lorraine Sheldon from New York. She hasn't, eh? Thanks ever so. God. Oh. Oh. In like that? Why did you knock before you come into a room?
I wasn't coming in, I was coming out.
Miss Preen, you are obviously in this room. That is true, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is.
Therefore, you came in. Hereafter, please knock.
There's some expressmen here with a crate, Mr. Whiteside. I told them come around the front.
Thank you, John. Oh, don't just stand there, Miss Preen. You look like a frozen custard. Go away!
Careful there, don't scrape the wall. Spring it right in here. Why, it's some kind of animals.
I'll say they're animals. We had to feed them at 7 o'clock this morning.
Who's it from?
Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Say.
Why, they're penguins! 2, 3, 4 penguins. Hello, my pretties.
Directions for feeding are right on top. Those 2 slats are open.
To be fed only whale blubber, eels, and cracked lobster.
They got Coca-Cola this morning and liked it.
Hello. You know, they make the most entrancing companions, John. Admiral Byrd has one that goes on all his lecture tours. I want these put right in the library with me. Take them right in.
Yes, sir. Right this way, gentlemen.
Better tell Sarah to order a couple of dozen lobsters. I don't suppose there's any whale blubber in Massalia. Oh, yes, there is.
The door was open, so well, good afternoon, Mr. Whiteside, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. Do you happen to know if eels are in season, Doctor?
How's that?
Never mind, I was a fool to ask you.
I opened those 2 slats a little, Mr. Whiteside. They seem so crowded in there.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Whiteside?
Goodbye, Doctor. Sorry you dropped in just now. I have to do my yogi exercises.
But Mr. Whiteside, it's been a week now. My book, you know. When are we going to start work on the book? I was hoping that today you'd be... Good afternoon, Miss Preen.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bradley. Doctor, perhaps I'm not well, but when I opened the doors just now, I thought I saw a penguin with a thermometer in its mouth.
What's this? Have those penguins got out of their crate?
Oh, thank God. I thought perhaps the strain had been too much.
A penguin?
Yes. Oh, Doctor, will you go in and capture them, please, and put them back in the crate? There are 4 of them.
Capture the penguins?
Yes.
Oh, very well. Do you suppose that later
We'll
on...
see. First, catch the penguins. And Miss Preen, will you amuse them, please, until I come in?
Yes, sir.
The Christmas tree in the bedroom just fell on Mr. Stanley. He's got a big bump on his forehead.
Why, isn't that too bad? The penguins, Doctor. Go on, Miss Preen.
Hello, Mr. Whiteside.
Hello, Dickie, my boy.
Mr. Whiteside, will you have some time later?
I don't know, Doctor. I'm busy now.
Well, suppose I wait a little while.
Oh.
I'll wait a little while.
Dr. Bradley is the greatest living argument for mercy killings. Well, Dickie, would you like a candid camera shot of my left nostril this evening?
I'm sort of stocked up on those.
Oh, right.
Have you got a minute to look at some new ones I've taken?
I certainly have. Why, these are splendid, Richard. There's real artistry in them. They're as good as anything by Margaret Burke White. This is the essence of photographic journalism.
Oh, say, I didn't know they were as good as that. I just like to take pictures, that's all.
Richard, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. You're not just a kid fooling with a camera anymore. These are good. This is what you ought to do. You ought to get out of here and do some of the things you were telling me about. Just get on a boat and get off wherever it stops. Galveston, Mexico, Singapore. Work your way through and just take pictures. Millions of them. Terrible pictures, wonderful pictures, everything.
Oh, say, wouldn't I like to, though? That's what I've been dreaming of for years. If I could do that, I would be the happiest guy in the world.
Well, why can't you do it? If I were your age, I'd do it like a shot.
Well, you know why. Dad.
Richard, do you really want to do this more than anything else in the world?
I certainly do.
Then do it.
Hello, Dick. Good afternoon, Mr. Whiteside.
Hello, my lovely. So I'm afraid it's up to you, Richard.
I guess it is. Well, thank you, Mr. Whiteside. You've been swell, and I'll never forget it.
Right on, Richard.
June, are you coming upstairs?
In a few minutes, Richard.
Well, knock on my door, will you? I want to talk to you.
Yes, I will. Mr. Whiteside.
June, my lamb, you were too young to know about the Elwell murder, weren't you? Completely fascinating. I have about 5 favorite murders, and the Elwell case is one of them. Would you like to hear about it?
Well, Mr. Whiteside, I wanted to talk to you. Would you mind for a few minutes? It's very important.
Why, certainly, my dear. I take it this is all about your young Lothario at the factory.
Yes. I just can't seem to make Father understand. It's like talking to a blank wall. He won't meet him. He won't even talk about it. What are we going to do, Mr. Whiteside? Sandy and I love each other. I just don't know where to turn.
My dear, I'd like to meet this young man. I'd like to see him for myself.
Would you, Mr. Whiteside? Would you meet him? He's outside now. He's in the kitchen.
Oh, good. Bring him in.
Mr. Whiteside, he's a very sensitive boy, so you will be nice to him, won't you?
God damn it, June! When will you learn that I am always kind and courteous? Bring this idiot in!
Well, here he is, Mr. Whiteside. This is Sandy.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do? Young man, I've been hearing a good deal about you from June this past week. It seems, if I have been correctly informed, that you two babes in the woods have quietly gone out of your minds.
There's another name for it. It's called love.
Ah, well, you've come to the right place. Dr. Sheridan Whiteside, broken hearts mended, brakes relined, hamburgers. Go right ahead.
Well, if June has told you anything at all, Mr. Whiteside, you know the jam we're in. You see, I work for the union, Mr. Whiteside. I'm an organizer. I've been organizing the men in Mr. Stanley's factory, and Mr. Stanley's pretty sore about it.
I'll bet.
Well, that being the case, Mr. Whiteside, I don't think I have the right to try to influence June. If she marries me, it means a definite break with her family, and I don't like to bring that about. But Mr. Stanley's so stubborn about it, so arbitrary. You know, this is not something I've done just to spite him. We fell in love with each other. But Mr. Stanley behaves as though it were all a big plot. John L. Lewis sent me here just to marry his daughter.
He's tried to fire Sandy twice down at the factory, but he couldn't on account of the Wagner Act, thank God.
Yes, he thinks I wrote that, too.
If he'd only let me talk to him, or if he would let Sandy talk to him.
Well, we've gone over all that, June. Well, anyway, this morning I got word I'm needed in Chicago. I may have to go on to Frisco from there. So you see the jam we're in.
Sandy's leaving tonight, Mr. Whiteside. He'll probably be gone a year. We've simply got to decide. Now.
My dear, this is absurdly simple. It's no problem at all. Now, to my jaundiced eye, it... Oh, pardon me. Hello? Yes, this is Whiteside. Oh, excuse me, it's a long-distance call. Yes, I'm on. Who's calling me? Oh, put him on! It's Walt Disney in Hollywood. Hello, Walt. How's my little dash of genius? Yes, I hoped you would. How'd you know I was here? I see. Yes, I'm listening. Mr. Disney calls me every Christmas. Yes, Walt, yes, I hear it. It sounds just like static. June. Hello. Thanks, old man, and a very Merry Christmas to you. Tell me, any news in Hollywood? Who's in Lana Turner's sweater these days? Well, tell him to get out. Oh, goodbye, Walt. And don't worry about Fantasia. It wasn't your fault. Beethoven hasn't written a hit in years. Now, where were we? Oh, yes, June. I like your young man. I have an unerring instinct about people. I've never been wrong. That's why I wanted to meet him. My feeling is that you two will be very happy together. Whatever his beliefs are, he's entitled to them. And you shouldn't let anything stand in your way. As I see it, it's no problem at all. Stripped of its externals, what does it come down to? Your father, the possibility of making him unhappy. Is that right?
Very unhappy.
That isn't the point. Suppose your parents are unhappy. It's good for them. Develops their characters. Look at me. I left home at the age of 4 and haven't been back since. They hear me on the radio, and that's enough for them.
Then your advice is to go ahead, Mr. Whiteside?
It is. Marry him tonight, June.
Do you mean that, Mr. Whiteside?
No, I mean you should marry Hamilton Fish. If I didn't mean it, I wouldn't say it. What do you want me to do? Say it all over again? My own opinion.
Stop talking. Forgive us for trespassing, Mr.
Not at all, old fellow, not at all. It's Christmas, you know. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Would you like to come along with us, June? We're taking some presents over to the Dexters.
No, thank you, Mother. I have to go write some letters.
Come along, Lizzie.
Why, Mr. Stanley, what happened to your forehead? Did you have an accident?
No, Mr. Whiteside, I'm taking boxing lessons. Come, Daisy.
Dear Mr. Whiteside, I've been trying all day to see you, to give you this.
Why, Miss Stanley, a Christmas gift for me?
It's only a trifle, but I wanted you to have it.
Oh.
It's a picture of me as I used to be. It was taken on another Christmas Eve many years ago. Don't open it until the stroke of midnight, will you? Merry Christmas, dear Mr. Whiteside. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Miss Stanley, and thank you.
This is the Stanley residence, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I'm here to see Mr. Whiteside. Will you tell him Michelle that it's here?
Lorraine! My blossom girl!
Sherry, my sweet! Oh, darling! Look at that poor, sweet, tortured face. Let me kiss it. Oh. You poor darling. Your eyes have a kind of gallant compassion. How drawn you are. Sherry, my sweet, I want to cry.
All right. You've made a very nice entrance, dear. Now relax.
But Sherry, darling, I've been so worried, and now seeing you in that chair.
This chair fits my fanny as nothing else ever has. I feel better than I have in years, and my only concern is news of the outside world. So take that skunk off and tell me everything. How are you, my dear?
Oh, darling, I'm so relieved. You look perfectly wonderful. I never saw you look better. Oh, my dear, do I look a wreck?
Oh.
I just dashed through New York, didn't do a thing about Christmas. Hattie Carnegie and had my hair done and got right on the train. And the Normandy coming back was simply hectic. Fun, you know, but simply exhausting. Jock Whitney and Cary Grant and Dorothy DeFrazzo.
Ew.
It was too exhausting. And of course, London before that was so magnificent, my dear. Well, I simply never got to bed at all. Darling, I have so much to tell you. I don't know where to start.
Well, start with the dirt first, dear. That's what I want to hear.
Oh, well, let me see. Sybil Cartwright got thrown right out of Ciro's.
Oh?
It was the night before I sailed. She was wearing one of those new cellophane dresses, and you could absolutely see Trafalgar Square. Before I forget, Beatrice Lilly gave me a message for you.
Oh.
She says for you to take off 25 pounds right away and send them to her by parcel post. She needs them.
I'll pack them in ice. Now come here, what about you? What about your love life? I don't believe for one moment that you never got to bed at all, if you'll pardon the expression.
Sherry, dear, you're dreadful.
What about that splendid bit of English mutton, Lord Bottomley? Haven't you hooked him yet?
Sherry, please. Cedric is a very dear friend of mine.
Now, Blossom girl, this is Sherry. Don't try to pull the bedclothes over my eyes. Don't tell me you wouldn't like to be Lady Bottomley with 100,000 pounds a year and 12 castles. By the way, has he had his teeth fixed yet? Every time I order Roquefort cheese, I think of those teeth.
Sherry! Really?
Well,
Cedric may not be brilliant, but he's rather sweet, poor lamb, and he's very fond of me. And he does represent a kind of English way of living that I like. You know what I mean?
I do indeed.
Oh, really, Sherry, why not? If I can marry Cedric, I don't know why I shouldn't. Shall I tell you something, Sherry? I think from something he said just before I sailed that he's finally coming around to it. It wasn't definite, mind you, but don't be surprised if I am Lady Bottomley before very long!
Lady Bottomley. Oh. Won't Kansas City be surprised? However, I shall be a flower girl and give the groom an iron toothpick as a wedding present. Come ahead, my Blossom. Let's hear some more of your skullduggery.
Mr. Whiteside?
What? No, not now. I'm busy.
Who's that?
He's fixing the plumbing. Now, come on. I want more news.
But Sherry, what about this play? After all, I've come all the way from New York, even on Christmas Eve. I've been so excited ever since your phone call. Where is it? When can I read it?
Well, here's the situation. This young author, his name is Bert Jefferson, brought me the play with the understanding that I send it to Kit Cornell. It's a magnificent part, and God knows I feel disloyal to Kit.
Yeah.
But there you are. Now, I've done this much. The rest is up to you. He's young and attractive. Now, just how you'll go about persuading him, I'm sure you know more about than I do.
Oh, darling, how can I ever thank you? Does he know I'm coming? Mr. Jefferson, I mean.
Oh, no. You're just out here visiting me. You'll meet him, and that's that. Get him to take you to dinner and work around to the play. Good God, I don't have to tell you how to do these things. How did you get all those other parts?
Sherry! Well, I'll go back to the hotel and get into something more attractive. I just dumped my bags and rushed right over here. Darling, you're wonderful.
All right, run along and get into your working clothes. Then come right back here and spend Christmas Eve with Sherry, and I'll have Mr. Jefferson on tap. By the way, I've got a little surprise for you. Who do you think's paying me a flying visit tonight? None other than your old friend and fellow actor, Beverly Carlton.
Really? Beverly. I thought he was being glamorous again on a tramp steamer.
Come, dear. Mustn't be bitter because he got better notices than you did.
Don't be silly, Sherry. I never read notices. I simply wouldn't care to act with him again, that's all. He's not staying here, is he? I hope not.
Oh, temper. No, he's not. Where did you get that diamond clip, dear? That's a new bit of loot, isn't it?
Ooh, haven't you seen this before? Cedric gave it to me for his mother's birthday. She was simply furious! Look, darling, I've got a taxi outside if I'm going to get back here.
I've just been given the most beautiful...
Well, hello, Maggie. I knew you must be around somewhere. How are you, my dear?
Santa's been at work, my pet. Blossom Girl just dropped in out of the blue and surprised us.
Hello, Lorraine.
Maggie, by any chance, did you take...
Who's that, Bert? This is Mr. Bert Jefferson, Lorraine, young newspaper man, Miss Lorraine Sheldon.
How do you do, Miss Sheldon?
How do you do? I didn't catch the name. Jefferson?
That's right, pet.
Yeah. Mr. Jefferson. You don't look like a newspaper man. You don't look like a newspaper man at all.
Really? I thought it was written all over me in neon lights.
Oh, no, not at all. I should have said you were... Oh, I don't know. An aviator or an explorer or something. They have that same kind of dash about them. I'm simply enchanted with your town, Mr. Jefferson. It gives one such a warm, gracious feeling. Tell me, have you lived here all your life?
Practically.
If you wish to hear the story of his life, Lorraine, kindly do so on your own time. Maggie and I have work to do. Get out of here, Jefferson. On your way, Blossom, on your way.
He's the world's rudest man, isn't he? Can I drop you, Mr. Jefferson? I'm going down to the Mansion House, I think it's called.
Thank you, but I've got my car. Suppose I drop you?
Oh, would you? Well, that'd be lovely. We'll send the taxi off. See you in a little while, Sherry. Bye, Maggie.
Bye, Maggie. I am invited back for dinner, am I not?
Yes, yes, you are. At Christmas, I always feed the needy. Now, please stop oozing out. Get out.
Come on, Mr. Jefferson. I want to hear more about this charming little town. And I want to know a good deal about you, too.
Now, let's see. How much did you say they wanted out of that broadcast? 4 minutes?
That's right. 4 minutes. She's looking very well, isn't she?
What's that? Who?
The Countess de Pushover. Quite a surprise, wasn't it, her dropping in?
Yes, yes, it was. Now, come on, Maggie. Come on, get to work.
Why, she must have gone through New York like a dose of salts. How long is she going to stay?
What? Oh, I don't know. A few days at this joyous season of the year when in the hearts of men, I can't cut that.
Isn't that curious? There was Lorraine, snug as a bug in somebody's bed on the Normandy.
Ere the Yuletide season pass.
Now, Sherry, dear, we will talk a bit.
Now, look here, Maggie. Just because a friend of mine happens to come out to spend Christmas with me, ooh, I have a hunch that's Beverly. Maggie, see if it is. Go ahead. Run! Run!
Magpie, a large, moist, incestuous kiss for my magpie.
Come in here, you Piccadilly pen pusher, and gaze upon a soul in agony.
Don't tell me how you are, Shelley dear. I want none of the tiresome details. I have only a little time, so the conversation will be entirely about me, and I shall love it. Shall I tell you how I glittered through the South Seas like a silver scimitar? Or would you rather hear how I frolicked through Zambezia, ravaging the Major General's daughter and finishing a 3-act play at the same time? Magpie dear, you are the moonflower of my middle age, and I love you very much. Say something beautiful to me.
Beverly, darling.
That's my girl. Now then, Shelley dear, without going into mountainous waves of self-pity, how are you?
I'm fine, you presumptuous cockney. Now, how was the trip? Wonderful?
Fabulous. I did a fantastic amount of work. Oh, by the way, did I glimpse that little boudoir butterfly La Sheldon in a motor car as I came up the driveway?
You did indeed. She's paying us a Christmas visit.
Dear girl, they do say she set fire to her mother, but I don't believe it. Shelley, my evil one, not only have I written the finest comedy since Moliere, but also the best review since my last one, and an operetta that frightens me. It's so good. I shall play it for 8 weeks in London and 6 in New York, that's all. No matinees. Then I'm off to the Grecian Islands. Magpie, why don't you come along? Why don't you desert this cannonball of fluff and come with me?
Beverly, dear, be careful. You're catching me at a good moment.
Tell me, did you have a good time in Hollywood? How long were you there?
3 unbelievable days. I saw everyone from Adrian to Zanuck. They came, poor dears, as to a shrine. I was insufferably charming and ruthlessly firm in refusing $7 million for 2 minutes' work.
What about Banjo? Did you see my wonderful Banjo in Hollywood?
I did. He gave a dinner for me. I arrived in white tie and tails to be met at the door by 2 bewigged flunkies who quietly proceeded to take my trousers off. I was then ushered in my lemon silk drawers into a room full of Norma Shearer, Claudette Colbert, and Aldous Huxley, among others. Dear, sweet, incomparable Banjo.
I'll never forget that summer at Antibes when Banjo put a microphone in Lorraine's mattress and then played the record the next day at lunch.
I remember it indeed. Lorraine left Antibes by the next boat.
I wish Banjo were here now.
Well, what's the matter, Magpie? Is Lorraine being her own sweet, sick-making self?
You wouldn't take her to the Grecian Islands, would you? Would you, Beverly? Just for me.
Now, Lorraine is a charming person who has gallantly given up her own Christmas to spend it with me.
Oh, I knew I had a bit of dirt for us all to nibble on.
Mr. Whiteside?
No, not now. Go away!
Have you kidnapped someone, Sherry?
Yes, that was the Lindbergh baby. Go ahead. Is this something juicy?
Juicy as a pomegranate. It's the latest report from London on the winter maneuvers of Miss Lorraine Sheldon against the left flank, in fact, all flanks of Lord Cedric Bottomley. Listen. Lorraine has just left us in a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Since September, in her relentless pursuit of his lordship, she has paused only to change girdles and check her oil. She has chased him, panting, from castle to castle, till he finally took refuge for several weekends in the gentleman's lavatory of the House of Lords. Practically no one is betting on the Derby this year. We are all making book on Lorraine. She is sailing tomorrow on the Normandy, but would return on the Yankee Clipper if Bottomley so much as belches in her direction. Have you ever met Lord Bottomley, Magpie dear? Arthur Thor! No fair gold shooting today, blast it. Only 6 partridges, 4 grouse, and the Duke of Sutherland.
My God, that's Bottomley to the very bottom.
Arthur Thor! Ripping debate in the House today. Old Basil spoke for 3 hours, dropped dead at the end of it. Ripping.
Beverly, you're making it up. No one sounds like that.
Oh, it's so good, it's uncanny. Damn it, Beverly, why must you race right out of here? I never see enough of you, you ungrateful muppet.
Sherry, darling, I can only tell you that my love for you is so great that I changed trains at Chicago to spend 10 minutes with you and wish you a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, my lad. My little magpie. Oh, now I have just time for one magnificent number to give you a taste of how brilliant the whole thing is. It's the second number in the review.
Oh, Dad, get rid of them, Maggie.
Hello? Oh, hello, Bert. Oh, well, just a minute. Beverly, do you have time to talk to a newspaper man just for 2 minutes? I kind of promised him.
Won't have time, Magpie, unless he's under the piano.
Oh, just a minute. Will you see him at the station, just for a minute before the train goes? Bert, go to the station. Wait for him there. Yes, he'll be there in a few minutes. Bye.
The stalls are impatient, Beverly. Let's have this second-rate masterpiece.
Oft in the nightfall, I think I might fall down from a perilous height. Deep in the heart of me, always a part of me, quivering, shivering light. Run, little lady, ere the shady shafts of time barb you with their winged desire, singe you with their sultry fire. Softly a fluid druid meets me, olden and golden the dawn that greets me, cherishing, so perishing, up to the stars I climb. What am I to do toward ending this madness? This sadness that's rending me through. The flowers of yesteryear are haunting me, taunting me, darling, for wanting you. What am I to say to warnings of sorrow when morning's tomorrow greets the dew? Will I see the cosmic ritz shattered and scattered to bits? What not am I to do?
Wonderful, Beverly.
Beverly, it's superb. The best thing you've ever written.
Please, let me say that.
I'll Westcott!
Ah, the airwaves, eh? Well, I shan't have to hear you, thank God. I shall be on the train.
Mr. Westcott, he's still 4 minutes over. You'll have to chisel it out.
No.
You showed me to plug in.
Mr. Westcott, in there. Gentlemen, follow me.
Come along, Whiteside. Say goodbye.
Stop this nonsense. Beverly, my
You
love!
can kiss Beverly.
What the hell? I will not be wheeled out of here like a baby who has to have his diapers changed.
Au revoir, chérie. Merry Christmas. Magpie, come get a kiss.
Beverly, I want 1 minute. I must have it. You'll make the train. The station's only a minute and a half from here.
What's the matter, Magpie?
Oh, get the hell out of here!
I'm just waiting in the kitchen until Mr. Whiteside is. Excuse me.
What, who is that man?
Never mind, Beverly. I'm in great trouble.
Hi, Magpie dear, what's the matter?
I've fallen in love.
What? No.
Yes, for the first time in my life, Beverly, I'm in love. I can't tell you about it. There isn't time, but Sherry is trying to break it up. In his own fiendish way, he's doing everything he can to break it up.
Why, the old devil, what's he doing?
Lorraine, he's brought Lorraine here to smash it.
What, did somebody here? In this town?
He's a newspaper man, the one you're going to meet at the station, and he's written a play, and I know that Sherry must be using that as bait. And you know Lorraine, she'll eat him up alive. You've got to help me, Beverly.
Well, of course I will, Magpie. What do you want me to do?
Well, I've got to get Lorraine out of here. The farther away, the better, and you can do it for me.
How can I? I'm leaving.
Have you a carbon copy of the broadcast, Miss Cutler?
It's there, on the table.
Oh, thank you. One of those penguins ate the original.
Beverly, you still there?
No! He's gone, Sherry.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's simply enchanting. It bitches Sherry and Lorraine at the same time. It's pure heaven. I adore it, and I shall do it up brow.
Oh, darling. The first baby will be named Beverly.
Then I hope it's a girl.
You're wonderful.
Of course I am. Come to Chiswick for your honeymoon, and I'll put you up. Goodbye, my lovely. I adore you.
Will I see the cosmic rings? Shattered and scattered to bits. What nothing much to do.
Shall I straighten up the room for the broadcast, Miss Cutler?
No, John, it isn't television, thank God. They only hear that liquid voice.
He certainly is wonderful, isn't he? The things he finds time to do.
Yes, John, he certainly sticks his nose into everything.
Why, Miss June, are you going away?
I know, John. No, I just... Mr. Whiteside is inside, I suppose.
Yes, he's getting ready to go on the radio.
Oh, well, look, John, if...
Where's Mr. Whiteside? In there?
Yes, he is.
Oh, well, maybe we ought to just go.
Thank you, John.
Hello, dear. Where's Sherry?
Inside working. He's broadcasting very soon.
Oh, of course, Christmas Eve. Oh, what a wonderful man Sheridan Whiteside is. You know, my dear, it must be such an utter joy to be secretary to somebody like Sherry.
Yes, you meet such interesting people. That's quite a gown, Lorraine. Going anywhere?
Oh, this? Oh, I just threw on anything at all. Aren't you dressing for dinner?
No, just what meets the eye.
Who does your hair, Maggie?
A little French woman named Maggie Cutler comes in every morning.
You know, every time I see you, I keep thinking your hair could be so lovely. I always want to get my hands on it.
I've always wanted to get mine on yours, Lorraine.
What, dear?
What?
Well, didn't you?
What?
Well, I thought... Oh, by the way, what time does Beverly get here? I'm not over anxious to see him.
He's been and gone, Lorraine.
Really? Oh, I'm very glad. Of course, you're great friends, aren't you? You and Beverly.
Yes, we are. I think he's a wonderful person.
Oh, I suppose so. But when I finished acting with him, I was a perfect wreck. All during that tender love scene that the critics thought was so magnificent, he kept dropping peanut shells down my dress. Wouldn't act with him again if I was starving.
Tell me, Lorraine, have you found a new play yet?
No, I haven't. There was a pile of manuscripts waiting for me in New York, but I hurried right out here to Sherry.
Yes, it was wonderful of you, Lorraine, to drop everything that way and rush to Sherry's wheelchair.
Well, after all, Maggie dear, what else has one in this world but friends?
That's what I always say.
How long will Sherry be in there, I wonder?
Not long. By the way, Lorraine, did you know that Mr. Jefferson has written quite a good play? The young man that drove you to the hotel.
Oh, really? No, I didn't. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, isn't it?
They've put a polish on my nails I simply loathe. I don't suppose Elizabeth Arden has a branch in this town.
Not if she has any sense.
Oh, well, I'll just bear it. But it does depress me. Have you read this, Maggie? Everybody was reading it on the boat. I hear you simply can't put it down.
I put it down right there. Hello? Yes? Yes, Miss Lorraine Sheldon? Yes, she's here. There's a transatlantic call coming through for you, Lorraine.
Transatlantic for me, here. What in the world?
It's London.
London? Hello? Hello? Cedric! Cedric, is this you? Why, Cedric, you darling! Why, what a surprise! How did you know I was here? Darling, don't talk so fast and you won't stutter so. That's better. Yes, now I can hear you. Yes, very clearly. It's as though you were just around the corner. I see. What? Darling. Cedric, dearest, would you wait just one moment? Maggie, dear, would you mind? It's Lord Bottomley, a very personal call. Would you mind?
Oh, not at all.
Yes, my dearest. Now tell me. Cedric, please don't stutter so. Don't be nervous. Oh, my darling. Oh, my sweet. You don't know how I've prayed for this every night on the boat, darling. Yes, 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 1,000 times yes. I'll take a plane right out of here and catch the next boat. Oh, my sweet, we're going to be the happiest people in the world. I wish I were there now in your arms, Cedric. What? Cedric, don't stutter so. Yes, darling, and I love you. Oh, so much. Oh, my dear sweet, my darlingest darling. Yes, yes, I will, darling. I'll be thinking of you every moment. You've made me the happiest girl in the world. Goodbye. Goodbye, darling. Goodbye. Sherry! Sherry! Do you know what's happened? Cedric just called from London. He's asked me to marry him.
What?
Oh, Sherry, think of it. At last, I'm going to get right out of here and catch the next boat. How far are we from Chicago? I can get a plane from there.
May I come in?
Maggie, dear, can I get a plane out of here right away? Or I'll even take a train to Chicago and fly from there. I've simply got to get the next boat for England. When is it? Do you know? Is there a newspaper here?
The Queen Mary sails Friday. Why? What's happened?
Oh, Maggie, the most wonderful thing in the world has happened. Lord Bottomley has asked me to marry him. Oh, Maggie.
Really? Well, what do you know?
Isn't it wonderful? I'm so excited I can hardly think. Maggie, dear, you must help me get out of here.
I'd be delighted to, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you. Will you look things up right away?
Yes, I have a timetable right here. And don't worry, Lorraine, because if there's no train, I'll drive you to Toledo and you can catch a plane from there.
wonderful. Sherry? What's the matter with you? You haven't said a word. You haven't even congratulated me.
Let me understand this, Lorraine. Am I to gather from your girlish squeals that you were about to toss your career into the ash can?
Oh, no, not at all. Of course, I may not be able to play this season, but there'll be other seasons, Sherry.
I see, and everything goes into the ash can with it. Is that right?
But Sherry, you couldn't expect me
Don't
to...
explain, Lorraine. I understand only too well. And I also understand why Cornell remains the first actress of our theater.
Oh, this is wonderful. We're in luck, Lorraine. There's a plane out of Toledo at 10:03. It takes about an hour to get there. Why, it all works out wonderfully, doesn't it, Sherry?
Peachy.
Oh, Maggie, what's the number of that hotel I'm at? I've got to get my maid started packing.
Messalia 32.
Messalia 32, please. Let's see, I sail Friday, 5-day boat. That means I ought to be in London Wednesday night. Hello, this is Miss Sheldon. That's right. Connect me with my maid.
Oh, look, Sherry, it's starting to snow. Isn't that wonderful, Sherry? Oh, I've never felt more like Christmas in my life, don't you, Sherry, dear?
Shut your nasty little face.
Cosette. Now listen carefully, Cosette. Have you got a pencil? We're leaving here tonight by plane and sailing Friday on the Queen Mary. Start packing immediately and I'll call for you in about an hour. Yes, that's right. Now I want you to send these cables for me. Ready? The first one goes to Lord and Lady Cunard. You'll find all these addresses in my little book. It's in my dressing case. Lord and Lady Cunard, my darlings, returning Friday, Queen Mary, Cedric and I being married immediately on arrival. Wanted you to be the first to know. Love, Lorraine. Now send the same message. What? Oh, thank you, Cosette. Thank you very much. Okay, now send the same message to Lady Astor, Lord Beaverbrook, and my mother in Kansas City. Got that? Then send a wire to Hattie Carnegie, New York. Please meet me, Sherry, Netherland, noon tomorrow, with sketches of bridal gown and trousseau, Lorraine Sheldon. And then send a cable to Monsieur Pierre Cartier. Cartier's London. Can you hold in reserve for me the triple string of pearls I picked out in October? Cable me Queen Mary, Lorraine Sheldon. Have you got all that straight, Cosette? That's fine. Now you'll have to rush, my dear. I'll be at the hotel in about an hour, so be ready. Goodbye. Oh, thank goodness for Cosette. I would die without her. She's the most wonderful maid in the world. Well, life is just full of surprises, isn't it? Who'd have thought an hour ago I'd be on my way to London?
An hour ago? No, I certainly wouldn't have thought it an hour ago.
No, I know! It's just incredible! I don't know.
Will you both stop this female drooling? I have a violent headache.
Oh, Sherry, can I get you something?
Look here, Sherry, I'm sorry if I've offended you, but after all, my life is my own. And
Everybody, say, you know, it's snowing out. Gonna have a real old-fashioned Christmas.
Oh, why don't you telephone your scoop to the New York Times?
Miss Sheldon has to catch a plane out of Toledo tonight. Could we drive her over, you and I?
Well, certainly. I'm sorry you have to go, Miss Sheldon. No bad news, I hope.
Oh, no, on the contrary, very good news. Wonderful news.
Yes, indeed. It calls for a drink, I think. Sherry, you're not being a very good host. How about a bottle of champagne?
Oh, I can do better than that. Let me mix you something. It's a Jefferson special, okay, Mr. Whiteside?
Yes. Mix anything, only stop driveling.
Anybody admire my Christmas present yet, Meg?
Oh, dear, I forgot. Look, everybody. From Mr. Jefferson to me.
Oh, it's charming. Let me see it. Oh, why, it's inscribed, too. To Maggie, long may she wave. Bert. Oh, Maggie, it's a lovely Christmas present. Sherry, look, isn't it sweet? Oh.
Just ducky.
I told you it was beautiful, Bert, see?
Well, shows what you get if you save your coupons.
Oh, God.
Oh. What's going on between you two, anyhow, Maggie? Are you hiding something from us?
Great God, will this dribble never stop? My head is bursting.
A Jefferson special will cure anything.
I don't think so.
Oh, by the way, I got a 2-minute interview with Beverly Carlton at the station. You were right, Mr. Whiteside. He's quite something.
Go ahead, Bert, mix the drink.
I was lucky to get even 2 minutes. He was in a telephone booth most of the time. Couldn't hear what he was saying, but from the faces he was making, it looked like a scene from one of his plays.
Bert, mix those drinks, will you?
Just a minute, if you please, Jefferson. Mr. Carlton was in a telephone booth at the station.
Certainly was. I thought he'd never come out. Kept talking and making the damnedest faces for about 5 minutes.
Bert, my boy, I have an idea. I shall love the Jefferson special. Make me a double one, will you? My headache is gone with the wind.
Okay.
Shh. Dick Tracy is now at work.
What?
Operator, dear, has there been a call from England over this telephone within the past half hour? Yes, I'll wait.
Sherry, what is this?
What's that? There have been no calls from England for the past 3 days. Thank you. Now, will you repeat that, please? Blossom Girl. Hear it, dear. Thank you, and a Merry Christmas. Yes, indeed. It seems we're going to have a real old-fashioned Christmas.
Sherry, what is all this? What's going on? What does this mean?
My dear, you have just played the greatest love scene of your career with your old friend, Beverly Carlton.
That's not true. I was talking to Cedric. What do you mean?
I mean, my Blossom, that was Beverly you poured out your girlish heart to, not Lord Bottomley. Ah, me, who'd have thought 5 minutes ago that you would not be going to London?
Sherry, stop it. What is this? I want this explained.
Explained? You heard the operator, my dear. All I can tell you is that Beverly was indulging in one of his famous bits of mimicry. That's all. You've heard him do Lord Bottomley before, haven't you?
Yes. Yes, of course. But why would he want to do such a thing? This is one of the most dreadful... Oh, my God. Those cables. Oh. Give me the hotel, whatever it's called. I want the hotel. I'll pay him off for this if it's the last thing that I... Mansion House, connect me with my maid. What? Who the hell do you think it is? Miss Sheldon, of course. S-H-E-L-D-O. Oh, God, those cables. If only Cosette hasn't... Cosette! Did you send those cables? Cosette, listen. I want you to send another cable to every one of those people and tell them somebody's been using my name and to disregard anything and everything they hear from me. Except this, of course. Don't ask questions, do as you're told. Don't argue with me, you French bitch! God damn it, do as you're told!
Now steady, my Blossom. Take it easy.
What do you mean, take it easy? Do you realize I'll be the laughing stock of England? Why, I won't dare show my face! Oh, I always knew Beverly Carlton was low, but not this low. Why? It isn't even funny! Why would he do it? That's what I'd like to know. Why would he do it? Why would anyone in the world want to play a silly trick like this? I can't understand it. Do you, Sherry? Do you, Maggie? You both saw him this afternoon. Why would he walk out of here, go right to a phone booth, and try to ship me over to England on a fool's errand? There must have been some reason. There must have. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Why would Beverly Carlton, or anybody else for that matter, want me to... Oh. Oh. I think I begin to... Of course. That's it. Of course that's it. Yes. That's a very charming bracelet Mr. Jefferson gave you, isn't it, Maggie dear? Of course, it makes complete sense now. And to think that I'm nearly... Well, wild horses couldn't get me out of here now, Maggie. If I were you, I'd hang on to that bracelet, dear. It'll be something to remember him by.
All right, Mr. Whiteside, almost time. Here's your new copy. Hook her up, boys. Start testing.
How much time?
A couple of minutes.
Oh, come, Daisy!
Here comes the Jefferson Special. Oh, have we time?
Oh, I'm sure we have, Mr. Jefferson. I'm not leaving after all. My plans are changed.
Really? Oh, that's good.
And I hear you've written a simply marvelous play. I want you to read it to me tonight. Will you? We'll go back to the mansion house right after dinner, and you'll read me your play.
Why, I should say so. I'd be delighted. Maggie, did you hear that? Say, I'll bet you did this. You arranged the whole thing. Well, it's the finest Christmas present you could have given me.
Maggie! Mr. Whiteside, my son has run off on a freighter, and my daughter is marrying an anarchist. They say you told them to do it.
Quiet, please.
My poor June, my poor Richard. This is the most...
Quiet, please. We're going on the air.
How dare you? This is the most outrageous...
Please, quiet. We're going on the air.
Oh, I see you're still...
Oh, God!
Mr. Whiteside, you are the most...
For God's sake, quiet! All right, boys, right this way. Out of the way, please. Down here, this microphone. Okay, New York? Good evening, everybody. Cream of Mush brings you Sheridan Whiteside.
This is Whiteside speaking. On this eve of eves, when my own heart is overflowing with peace and kindness, I think it is most fitting to tell once again the story of that still and lustrous night, nigh on to 2,000 years ago.
A penguin bit me!
We'll be right back with Act 3 of The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Having a good time, Tessa?
Wonderful. But one thing's been bothering me. In Lorraine's first scene, when she's dishing her Normandy shipmates to Whiteside, she mentions someone called Dorothy DeFrazzo, and then they both make a rather sour face.
Yes.
Well, darling, who is Dorothy DeFrazzo?
Funny you should ask. As by a stroke of unusual good fortune, I just happened to know.
Really?
She was an American socialite who married an Italian count, palled around with movie stars, threw lavish parties, gossiped, and, not to her credit, I'm afraid, was a close friend of Benito Mussolini's.
Hence the sour face.
Yep.
When The Man Who Came to Dinner opened, Life magazine described it as the most successful comedy ever written about a group of well-known people with no attempt to conceal their identity. Kaufman and Hart certainly made no secret about having patterned the character of Beverly Carlton, for example, on author, songwriter, actor, and urbane charmer Noel Coward, who once said, "Wit ought to be a glorious treat, like caviar. Never spread it about like marmalade." And yet turned out dozens of extremely witty plays and more than 300 popular songs during his career. What Am I to Do, which we just heard Beverly sing, is a dead-on parody of Coward's sophisticated yet sentimental style, written especially for the play by another songwriter of some talent, Cole Porter. He composed the song as a gift to the playwrights, who in return gave their friend a gold cigarette case.
Thinly veiled characters from real life, such as Beverly Carlton and, coming up in the next act, Banjo, inspired by Harpo Marx, along with the incessant name-dropping of celebrated personalities throughout the play, gave audiences in 1939 the thrill of feeling that they were in the know. These same conceits give today's audiences a glimpse into a vanished era from America's recent past. What gives this new production particular resonance is that the play, this theatre, and 42nd Street itself are all revived gems from that glittering cultural heyday. In his autobiography, Moss Hart wrote, "I shall certainly never forget the picture that greeted me as I stood gaping at my first sight of Broadway and to 42nd Street. The theatre is not so much a profession as a disease, and my first look at Broadway was the beginning of a lifelong infection.
To those of us who work in the theatre, it is indeed a disease, happily incurable. For many years, however, that hub of theatrical activity, 42nd Street, had become something more like a plague, corroded, and it seemed terminal. That is, until New York declared this patient must be saved and brought in a team of specialists.
I'm sitting right now on the 7th floor in the Jerome Robbins studio of a building built by the organization I'm the president of called the New 42nd Street. Our mission has been to revitalize the street's historic theaters. At the turn of the century, Oscar Hammerstein I, grandfather of the famous lyricist, took a chance and built the first theater on the block, the Republic. I'd say his gamble paid off. For the next 2 decades, 42nd Street thrived as the theatrical center of New York. Over time, the street became home to vaudeville palaces and burlesque grindhouses as new legitimate theaters opened just a few blocks north. In the 30s and 40s, movies crowded out live performance. And by the 60s and 70s, the once great nerve center of the theater district had degenerated into a tawdry venue for kung fu, slasher, and porno flicks, as well as sex shops, prostitution, and drug dealing.
When I came to New York City in 1969, 42nd Street was one of those places you didn't want to spend a lot of time at. One tended to walk between 7th and 8th Avenue on 42nd Street, if you had to, with your head down and walking very quickly.
And finally, the city and the state felt that because New Yorkers were avoiding 42nd Street, the most famous street in the world, that something needed to be done. The first theater we reinvented was the Republic, now the New Victory, a theater devoted to works for kids, their families, and school groups. Today, it's the oldest operating theater in New York. Next, Disney meticulously restored the New Amsterdam to its 1903 Art Nouveau splendor. And the block was really on its way. The Lyric and the Apollo were joined together, using architectural elements from each to create a beautiful 1,800-seat house, the Ford Center. The Eltinge, named after the famous female impersonator of the early 1900s, Julian Eltinge, later renamed the Empire, was actually moved 170 feet down the block and is now the entrance to the 25-screen American Multi-Cinema Complex. The only brand new theater on the block is the Duke, a 200-seat experimental space in the new 42nd Street studio building. And finally, of course, the Selma, done in Italian Renaissance style that was and is a dream, both in terms of its sightlines and acoustics. It is now known as the American Airlines Theater, the permanent home of the Roundabout Theater Company.
The Roundabout has had quite an odyssey in terms of our home. We started out, when I got to Roundabout, at a 150-seat theater underneath a basement supermarket. And in fact, I remember we used to do the plays, and you'd hear the meat carts from the supermarket rolling above us during the performances. And the audiences sort of got used to it. They liked the meat carts after a while. We then moved to a 300-seat theater on West 23rd Street. We got evicted from that because they made it into a quadruplex or something like that. We then built what's now called the Union Square Theater, which had been an old Union Hall. And then in 1990, we moved to the Criterion Center, which is a 500-seat Broadway theater. Then, about 1997, we got an eviction notice from the Criterion Center because the landlord could get 5 times as much rent with a retail tenant. And fortunately for us, we were able to get the last theater on 42nd Street yet to be developed, called the Selwyn Theater. We got to restore to its original glory this incredible historic theater. And that means all of the original moldings, all of the original artwork. There are these gorgeous murals that were completely covered up, and we've stripped them of the old paint. We've had professional mural artisans come in and restore them to the way they looked 70, 80 years ago. And so what you see now, and it's the best of both worlds, we're very fortunate, is a theater that looks as glorious as it did the day that it opened in the early part of the century, but with all the modern amenities.
The Selwyn was the home of many extraordinary productions, not least of which were those that Noel Coward and Gertrude Lawrence did together, like Tonight at 8:30.
It was Tony's idea for the set to relate to the restoration of the theater, which was a brilliant notion because it made the set feel like an extension of this beautifully restored theater, but at the same time was very true to the home that Mr. and Mrs. Stanley might have had, in Mesalia, Ohio at that time.
You get asked to design The Man Who Came to Dinner, and you think, well, we're not going to do anything very radical with this. It's set very much in its period. You can't update it without cutting a huge chunk of it out. And Kaufman and Hart, who wrote these plays with extraordinary skill and care, knew exactly the architecture, the structure, the geometry in which this comedy would be taking place. So we looked at the ground plan, we looked at the photographs of the original production, we looked at the movie. That's part of the fun of the research area, is just digging into all this stuff. And I thought, well, we're going to nearly the era in which this theater is built. Maybe I could use some architectural elements from the auditorium itself, the doors and the shape of the arches and things of that sort, to make it, as it were, the child of the theater, as if its sort of auditorium spewed its little offspring onto the stage, the theatrical space in which this story could most positively erupt. Of course, we do try desperately to make sure that there are no accidental details, that they are really specific and what will benefit, what will serve the piece maximally. You have great power for harm as a designer, and so you have to try and guard against that a lot. If it isn't carried through properly in every single detail, I go nearly crazy.
I've always been attracted to the American classics of the early 20th century, and Kaufman and Hart, I think, are the greatest comedy writers of the first half of this century. They write these beautiful, perfectly constructed comedies.
You ask why this play endures? Because it's beautifully written. It's written with great skill, great humor, and great love.
And the problem was, up until recent years, we really didn't have either the stage facilities or, more importantly, the budget to do these plays the way they were written.
The virtue of working for a not-for-profit institutional theater, as opposed to a commercial Broadway production, is I can fill the stage with 26 or 7 people. What do I mean by that? This is a play that was written in a time when producers could afford to hire 20 to 30 actors if that's what the play needed.
I think it's very important for the public to see the revivals of the classics. I mean, I think these great plays are great plays because they speak to every generation. They move every generation. And much in the same way that the Metropolitan Museum showcases the great artwork from history, I look at Roundabout as a place to showcase the great theatrical artwork from history. And so as we began looking towards our new home and our budget expanded, we began to explore the possibility of doing these great comedy classics the way they should be done. And so that was the inspiration for first looking at The Man Who Came to Dinner.
The intermission is nearly over, and before the curtain rises on the third and final act of The Man Who Came to Dinner, Liam and I would like to thank you for welcoming us into your living rooms this evening.
We hope we've been good guests and that we haven't been too bossy or overstayed our welcome.
The actors who came to dinner.
Words to strike fear in anyone's heart.
We return now to Mesalia, Ohio, where in at least one household, the prospect of a Merry Christmas seems very remote indeed.
Where do you disappear to all the time, my lady Nausea?
Mr. Whiteside, I can only be in one place at a time.
That is very fortunate for this community.
Good morning, Mr. Whiteside. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, John. Merry Christmas.
Sarah and I want to thank you for the wonderful present.
That's quite all right, John.
Are you ready for your breakfast, Mr. Whiteside?
No, I don't think I want any breakfast. Has Miss Cutler come down yet?
No, sir, not yet.
Is she in her room, do you know?
Yes, sir, I think she is. Shall I call her?
No, that's all, John.
Yes, sir.
I'm taking the 1 o'clock train, Sherry. I'm leaving.
You're doing nothing of the kind.
Here are your keys, your driving license. The key to the safe deposit vault is in the apartment in New York. I'll go in here now and clear things up.
Just a moment, Mrs. Siddons. Where were you until 3 o'clock this morning? I sat up half the night in this station wagon worrying about you. You heard me calling to you when you came in. Why didn't you answer me?
Look, it's over, Sherry, and you've won. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, come. What are you trying to do? Make me feel like a naughty, naughty boy? Honestly, Maggie, sometimes you can be very annoying.
You know, Sherry, you're quite wonderful in a way. You're annoyed. I wish there was a laugh left in me. Shall I tell you something, Sherry? I think you're a selfish, petty egomaniac who would see his mother burned at the stake if that were the only way he could light his cigarette. I think you'd sacrifice your best friend without a moment's hesitation if he disturbed the sacred routine of your self-centered, paltry little life. I think you're incapable of any human emotion that goes higher up than your stomach. And I was the fool of the world for ever thinking I could trust you.
Well, as long as I live, I shall never do anyone a good turn again. I won't ask you to apologize, Maggie. But 6 months from now, you will be thanking me instead of berating me.
In 6 months, Sherry, I expect to be so far away from you.
Hello. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. I'm a little high, but I can explain everything. Hi, Maggie. Hi, Mr. Whiteside. Shake hands with a successful playwright. Maggie, why'd you run away last night? Where were you? Miss Sheldon thinks the play is wonderful. I read her the play and she thinks it's wonderful. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, that's fine, Bert.
Isn't that wonderful, Mr. Whiteside?
Jefferson, I think you ought to go home, don't you?
What? No. Biggest day of my life. I know I'm a little drunk, but this is a big day. Been sitting over in Billy's Tavern all night. Never realized it was daylight until it was daylight. Listen, Maggie, Miss Sheldon thinks the play needs just a little bit of fixing. Do it in 3 weeks. She's gonna take me to a little place she's got in Lake Placid. Just for 3 weeks, gonna work on the play together. Isn't it wonderful? Well, why don't you say something, Maggie?
Look, Bert, I suggest you tell us all about this later. Now, why don't you go home?
Oh, excuse me! Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas!
God bless us all, and Tiny Tim!
Yes, Mr. Whiteside, I thought perhaps if I came very early...
You know what, Doctor? I'm going to Lake Placid for 3 weeks. Isn't it wonderful? You ever hear of Lorraine Sheldon, the famous actress? Well, we're going to Lake Placid for 3 weeks.
Dr. Bradley, would you do me a favor? I think Mr. Jefferson would like some black coffee and a little breakfast. Would you take care of him, please?
Yes, of course.
Dr. Bradley, I'm going to buy breakfast for you. Biggest breakfast you ever had.
Yes, well, come along, Jefferson.
You know what, Doc? Let's climb down a couple of chimneys. I got a friend that doesn't believe in Santa Claus. Let's climb down his chimney and scare the hell out of him.
Now listen to me, Maggie. I am willing to forgive your tawdry outburst and talk about this calmly.
I love him so terribly. Oh, Sherry. Sherry, why did you do it? Why did you do it?
Merry Christmas, Mr. Whiteside.
Merry Christmas, Miss Stanley.
I'm afraid I shouldn't be seen talking to you, Mr. Whiteside. My brother is terribly angry. I just couldn't resist asking, did you like my Christmas present?
I'm very sorry, Miss Stanley. I haven't opened it. I haven't opened any of my presents yet.
Oh, dear, I was so anxious to... It's right here, Mr. Whiteside. Won't you open it now?
I appreciate your thinking of me, Miss Stanley. This is very thoughtful of you. Ah, why, it's lovely. I'm very fond of these old photographs. Thank you very much.
I was 22 when that was taken. That was my favorite dress. Do you really like it?
I do indeed. When I get back to town, I shall send you a little gift.
Will you? Oh, thank you, Mr. Whiteside. I shall treasure it. Well, I shall be late for church. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Miss Stanley. What is there about that woman?
Sarah's got a little surprise for you, Mr. Whiteside. She's just taking it out of the oven.
Thank you, John. Miss Preen! Miss Preen!
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Answer the door, will you? John is upstairs. Oh.
Polly Atlas! Come back here, you red-headed vixen!
Get away from me! Get away from me! Get away.
I love you madly. Madly! Do you hear what I said? Madly! Kiss me!
Away from me! Get away from me! Oh, scream! Mr. Whiteside! Mr. Whiteside! Oh!
Don't be afraid of my passion. Kiss me. I can feel the hot blood pounding through your varicose veins.
Banjo, for God's sake!
Hello, Whiteside. Will you sign for this package, please?
Banjo, that is my nurse, you mental delinquent.
Come to my room in a half an hour and bring some rye bread.
Mr. Whiteside!
Whiteside, I'm here to spend Christmas with you. Give me a kiss.
Oh, get away from me, you reform school fugitive. How did you get here, anyway?
Carol Zanuck loaned me his reindeer.
Whiteside, we finished shooting the picture yesterday, and I'm on my way to Nova Scotia. Flew here in 12 hours. Borrowed an airplane from Howard Hughes.
Whiteside, I brought you a wonderful Christmas present. This brassiere was once worn by Hedy Lamarr.
Listen, you idiot, how long can you stay?
I may stay a month, or I may leave immediately.
I don't know. Things are so uncertain. Did you ever get the feeling that you wanted to go, but you still had the feeling that you wanted to stay? You knew it was right. Wasn't wrong. Still, you knew it wouldn't be very long. It's tough to have the feeling that you wanted to go, still have the feeling that you wanted to stay. Started to go, change your mind. Started to go again, but change your mind again. Did you ever have the feeling that you wanted to go? But just long enough to take a bath. I'm on my way to Nova Scotia. Where's Maggie?
Nova Scotia? What are you going to Nova Scotia for?
I'm sick of Hollywood, and there's a dame in New York I don't want to see.
So I figured I'd go to Nova Scotia and get some good salmon. Where the hell's Maggie? I want to see her.
Oh.
What's the matter with you? Where is she?
Banjo, I'm glad you're here. I'm very annoyed at Maggie. Very.
What's the matter?
Oh, say, what is this? I thought
thought you couldn't walk.
Oh, I've been all right for weeks. That isn't the point. I'm furious at Maggie. She's turned on me like a viper. You know how fond I am of her. Well, after all these years, she's repaying my affection by behaving like a fishwife.
What are you talking about?
But I never believed for a moment that she was really in love with him.
In love with who? I just got here, remember? I love you, man! Varicose veins, rye bread.
Give me a kiss.
Nova Scotia, Nova Scotia. How would you say Lamar? Things are so uncertain. Did you ever get the feeling that's wanted to go, but still had the feeling that's wanted to stay? You know what's right, wasn't wrong, side of got about to say. Say, can't, gotta go, say. Start to go, change your mind. Start to go again, but change your mind again. Remember?
Great God, that's what I'm trying to tell you, you Hollywood nitwit. Maggie fell in love with a young newspaper man here in town.
So Maggie finally fell. Well, what do you know? What kind of a guy is he?
Oh, shut up and listen, will you?
Well, go on. What happened?
Well, Lorraine Sheldon happened to come out here and visit me.
Old hot pants here?
Now listen, he'd written a play, this young fellow. You can guess the rest. He's going away with Lorraine this afternoon to rewrite. So there you are, Maggie's in there now crying her eyes out.
Gee. Say, wait a minute. What do you mean Lorraine Sheldon happened to come out here? I smell a rat, Sherry. A rat with a beard.
Well, all right. But I did it for Maggie, because I thought it was the right thing for her.
Oh, sure. You haven't thought of yourself in years. Gee, poor kid, can I go in and talk to her?
No, leave her alone.
Any way I can help, Sherry? Where does this guy live? This guy she likes. Can we get a hold of him?
Now, wait a minute, Banjo. We don't want any phony warrants. Are you pretending to be J. Edgar Hoover? No, stop that! I've been through all that with you before. I got Lorraine out here, and I've got to get her away.
Well, it's gotta be good, Sherry. Lorraine's no dope. There must be something that would get her out of here like a bat out of hell. Say, I think I got it. That fella she's so crazy about over in England. Lord Fanny, or whatever it is. Bottomley, that's it.
No, Banjo,
Wait a minute, you don't catch on. We send Lorraine a cablegram from Lord Bottomley.
I catch on, Banjo. Lorraine caught on, too. It's been tried.
Oh, I told you she was no dope. Well, you got a tough proposition on your hands.
The trouble is there's so damn little time. Lorraine is taking him away with her. Get out of my chair! Lorraine is taking him away with her this afternoon. Oh, damn. There must be some way out. The trouble is I've done this job too well. Hell and damnation.
Stuck, huh?
In the words of one of our greatest lyric poets. You said it.
Yeah. Gee, I'm hungry. Well, think of something, Sherry. You watch. We'll get Lorraine out of here if I have to do it one piece at a time.
Oh.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Whiteside. Excuse me. I've got something for you. But Mr. Whiteside, it was for you.
Never mind, Sarah. He's quite mad.
Come, Petrushka. We shall dance in the snow until all St. Petersburg
is aflame with jealousy.
Just give him some breakfast, Sarah. He's harmless. Now, just what does this mean?
It means, Mr. Whiteside, that I am leaving. My address is on the desk inside. You can send me a check.
You realize, Miss Preen, that this is completely unprofessional?
I do indeed. I am not only walking out on this case, Mr. Whiteside, I am leaving the nursing profession. I became a nurse because all my life, ever since I was a little girl, I was filled with the idea of serving a suffering humanity. After 1 month with you, Mr. Whiteside, I'm going to work in a munitions factory. From now on, anything that I can do that will help to exterminate the human race will fill me with the greatest of pleasure. If Florence Nightingale had ever nursed you, Mr. Whiteside, she would have married Jack the Ripper instead of founding the Red Cross. Good day.
but that awful boy. You know how your father and I felt. Ernest, thank goodness you managed to stop him. How'd you do it?
Never mind that, Daisy. Just take June upstairs. I have something to say to Mr. Whiteside.
What about Richard? Is there any news?
It's all right, Daisy. All under control. Just take June upstairs.
Oh, Father, haven't we had enough melodrama? I don't have to be taken upstairs. I will go upstairs. Merry Christmas, Mr. Whiteside. It looks bad for John L. Lewis. Come on, Mother, let's go lock me in my room.
Now, June, you feel better after you've had a hot bath. Have you had anything to eat?
I am pleased to inform you, sir, that your plans for my daughter seem to have gone a trifle awry. She is not, nor will she ever be, married to that labor agitator you so kindly picked out for her. As for my son, he has been apprehended in Toledo and will be brought back home within the hour. Not having your gift for invective, I cannot tell you what I think of your obnoxious interference in my affairs. But I have now arranged for you to interfere no longer. Come in, gentlemen. Mr. Whiteside, these gentlemen are sheriff's deputies. They have a warrant by which I am enabled to put you out of this house. And I need hardly add, it will be the greatest moment of my life. Mr. Whiteside, I am giving you 15 minutes in which to pack up and get out. If you are not gone in 15 minutes, Mr. Whiteside, these gentlemen will forcibly eject you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Will you wait outside, please? 15 minutes, Mr. Whiteside. And that means baggage wheelchair, penguins, octopus, and cockroaches. I am now going upstairs to smash our radio, so that not even accidentally will I ever hear your voice again.
Sure you don't want my autograph, old fella?
15 minutes, Mr. Whiteside.
Well, Whiteside, I didn't get an idea. Any news from the front?
Yes, the enemy is at my rear and nibbling.
Where'd you say Maggie was, in there?
It's no use, Banjo. She's taking the 1 o'clock train out.
No kidding. You didn't tell me that. You mean she's quitting you after all these years? She's really leaving?
She is.
Well, that means you only have till 1 o'clock to do something.
No, dear. I have exactly 15 minutes. 14 minutes in which to pull out of my hat the goddamnedest rabbit you have ever seen.
What do you mean, 15 minutes?
In exactly 15 minutes, baby's rosy little body is being tossed into the snow. My host has sworn out a warrant. I'm being kicked out.
What? I never heard of such a thing. What would he do a thing like that for?
Never mind, never mind. The point is, I have only 15 minutes. Banjo, dear, the master is growing a little desperate.
How about laying your cards on the table with Lorraine?
Now, Banjo, you know Dream Girl as well as I do. What do you think?
You're right. Say, if I knew where she was, I could get a car and run her over.
Oh.
It wouldn't hurt her much.
Banjo. For God's sake, go in and talk to Maggie for a minute right in there. I want to think.
We could get a doctor. To say Lorraine has smallpox.
Please, Banjo, I've got to think.
Pardon me, miss. Is this the YMCA?
Is this your father? No, you idiot. Hello, Mr. Whiteside. I didn't get very far. Any suggestions?
I'm very sorry, Richard. Very sorry indeed. I wish I were in a position.
Well, you are not in a position. Thank you very much, officer. Here's a little something for your trouble.
Thank you, sir. Good day.
Will you go upstairs, please, Richard? 10 minutes, Mr. Whiteside.
Here you are, Mr. Whiteside. Feeling any better?
Superb. Any cyanide in this orange juice, John? Open the door, John. It's probably some mustard gas from an old friend.
Say, that crazy fellow made a great hit with Sarah. He wants to give her a screen test.
Oh.
Good morning. Is Mr. Whiteside up yet?
Yes, he is, Miss Sheldon. He's right in here.
Merry Christmas, darling. Merry Christmas. I've come to have Christmas breakfast with you, my dear. May I?
Of course, my sprite. John, a tray for Miss Sheldon. Better make it 1-minute eggs.
Sherry, it is the most perfect Christmas morning. The snow is absolutely glistening. It's too bad you can't get out.
Oh, I'll probably see a bit of it. I hear you're off for Lake Placid, my blossom. What time are you going?
Sherry, how did you know? Is Bert here?
No, he rolled in a little while ago. Worked rather fast, didn't you, dear?
Darling, I was just swept off my feet by the play. It's fantastically good. Sherry,
It's the kind of part that only comes along once in 10 years. Darling, I am so grateful to you. Really, Sherry, sometimes I think you're the only friend I have in the world.
Thank you, dear. What time did you say you were leaving, you and Jefferson?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's 4 o'clock. You know, quite apart from anything else, Sherry, Bert is really a very attractive man. Makes it rather a pleasure squaring accounts with little Miss Vitriol. In fact, it's all worked out beautifully. Sherry Lamb, I want to give you the most beautiful Christmas present you've ever had in your life. Now, what do you want? Anything. I'm so deliriously happy. That sounds like Banjo. Is he here?
He is, my dear. Just the family circle gathering at Christmas. My, how time flies when you're having fun.
Well, hello, sweetie pants. How are you?
Very well, Banjo. Thank you, and you.
I'm fine, fine. How's the mattress business, Lorraine?
Very funny. It's too bad, Banjo, that your pictures aren't as funny as you seem to think you are.
Oh, you got me there, Mama.
Say, you looking the pink, Lorraine? Anything in the windway sign?
Not a glimmer.
What time does the boat sail?
10 minutes.
Oh, what boat is this?
The good ship up the creek.
Ah, well, so you feel fine, huh, Lorraine?
What? Yes, of course I do. What? Wait. Sherry, where's that breakfast?
I've listed everything except for the New Year's Eve broadcast. Wasn't there a schedule on that?
I think it's on the table there someplace.
Thank you.
New Year's Eve? Oh, Bert and I'll hear it in Lake Placid. You were at my cottage up there once, weren't you, Sherry? Lovely, isn't it? Away from everything, just snow and clear, cold night. Oh, that's probably Bert. I told him to meet me here. You know, I'm looking forward to Lake Placid. Bert's the kind of man who will do all winter sports beautifully.
Will he get time?
Bring it right in here. Right, it's for you, Mr. Whiteside.
Oh, Sherry, what's this?
Where do you want this put?
Right here.
Dear God, if there was one thing I needed right now, it was an Egyptian mummy.
Merry Christmas from the Khedive of Egypt.
Why did you send him, Grant's tomb?
5 minutes, Mr. Whiteside. Including that.
What was all that about? Who is that man?
He announces the time every few minutes. I pay him a small sum.
But what on earth for, Sherry?
I lost my watch!
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Whiteside. I see you're busy.
Good God.
Pardon me. Pardon me. I'll wait in here. I've written a new chapter on the left kidney. I'll wait in here.
Sherry, was that the plumber again?
Oh.
Dear, what about Bert is? Darling, you're not very Christmassy. You're usually bubbling over Christmas morning. Who sent this to you, Sherry? The Khedive of Egypt? You know, I think it's rather beautiful. I must go to Egypt someday. Really, I must. I know, I'd love it. The first time I went to Pompeii, I cried all night. All those people, all those lives, where are they now? Sherry, don't you ever think about that? I do. Here was a woman, like myself, who once lived and loved, full of the same passions, fears, jealousies, hate. What remains of any of it now? Just this, and nothing more. A span of 4,000 years. A mere atom in the eternity of time. And here am I, another woman living out her life. I want to cry. Oh, I mustn't talk this. Christmas! It's
have you ever played St. Joan?
Why, no, I haven't, Sherry. Why do you ask?
There was something about your expression as you stood in that case. There was an absolute halo about you.
Oh, Sherry, how sweet.
It transcended any mortal expression I've ever seen. Step into it again, dear.
Oh, Sherry, you're joshing me, aren't you?
My dear, I don't make light of these things. I was deeply moved. There was a strange beauty about you, Lorraine. Pure Da Vinci. Please do it again.
I don't know what it was that I did exactly. Oh, I feel too silly, Sherry. No!
Lorraine, dear, in that single moment you approached the epitome of your art, and you should not be ashamed of it. You asked me a little while ago what I wanted for a Christmas present. All that I want, Lorraine, is the memory of you in that mummy case.
Darling, I'm all choked up.
Oh.
Oh!
I see. I see.
Dust thou art, and...
You're service for you.
Oh, will she be all right in there?
Oh, sure, she can breathe easy. I'll let her out as soon as we get on the plane.
All right.
What are we gonna do now? How do we get this out of here?
One thing at a time. That's the next step.
Yeah, well, think fast, Captain. Think fast.
This is everything, Sherry. I'm leaving 3 carbons. Is there anything out here?
Oh,
What's in this basket?
nothing at all. Thank you, thank you.
Shall I file these letters? Do you want this picture?
No, throw everything away. Oh, wait, give me the picture. I want the picture. Yes.
The only thing I haven't done is put your broadcasts in order. Do you want me to do that? Sherry?
What? Do that, will you? Do it right away. It's very important. Right away, Maggie.
I'll see you before I go, Banjo.
I got it. What? I knew I'd seen this face before somewhere. I knew it. Now I know how to get this out of here.
What? What face? How?
This
Time is up, Mr. Whiteside. 15 minutes.
Ah, yes, Mr. Stanley, 15 minutes, but just one favor before I go. I would like you to summon those 2 officers and ask them to help this gentleman down to the airport with this mummy case. Would you be good enough to do that, Mr. Stanley?
I will do nothing of the kind.
Oh, I think you will, Mr. Stanley. Or shall I inform my radio audience on my next broadcast that your sister, Harriet Stanley, is none other than the famous Harriet Sedley, who murdered her mother and father with an axe 25 years ago in Gloucester, Massachusetts? Come, Mr. Stanley, it's a very small favor. Or would you rather have the good folk of Massalia repeating at your very doorstep that once popular little jingle, Harriet Sedley took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. And when the job was nicely done, she gave her father 41. Remember, Mr. Stanley, I too am giving up something. It would make a hell of a broadcast. Well?
Mr. Whiteside, you are the damnedest person I ever met.
I often think so myself, old fellow. Officers, will you come in here, please?
Whiteside, you're a great man.
Come right in, officers. Mr. Stanley would like you to help this gentleman down to the airport with this mummy case. He is sending it to a friend in Nova Scotia.
Collect.
Right, Mr. Stanley?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Handle it carefully. Banjo, my love, you're wonderful. And I may write a book about you.
Don't bother. I can't read.
Goodbye, Maggie. Love conquers all.
Don't drop that case, boys. It contains an antique. Think you're gonna get the feeling that you wanted to go.
A little Christmas present for you.
Sherry. Sherry, was that?
It was indeed. The field is clear, and you have my blessing.
Sherry. Sherry, you old reprobate.
Just send me a necktie sometime, my hat and coat, Maggie, and also your railroad ticket. I am leaving for New York.
You're leaving, Sherry?
Don't argue, rat girl. Do as you're told.
Yes, Mr. Whiteside.
Mr. Whiteside, I want to apologize.
Don't give it a thought, Bert. There has been a slight change of plan. Miss Sheldon is off on a world cruise. I am taking your play to Catherine Cornell. Miss Cutler will explain everything. Ah, thank you, Maggie, my darling.
Mr. Whiteside, are you very busy?
Ah, yes, Doctor, very busy. But if you ever get to New York, Doctor, try and find me. Well, goodbye, my lamb. I love you very much.
Sherry, you're wonderful.
Nonsense. Goodbye, Jefferson. You'll never know the trouble you've caused.
Goodbye, Mr. Whiteside.
Goodbye, Mr. Stanley. I would like to hear in the near future that your daughter has married her young man and that your son has been permitted to follow his own bent. Or else... Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Whiteside. Maggie, what is this? I didn't know he could walk even.
It's all right, Bert.
Miss Breen! I want Miss Breen back! I'm suing you for $650,000! All right, again.
Go behind the scenes with Stage on Screen. Visit pbs.org.
Thank you.